Hey YouTube, Alex here, and I am coming to you live from Bangkok, Thailand. And the rainy season is in full effect. It's been hot, humid, rainy, overcast today. Not the best weather to go out in, so I've just been chilling at the apartment doing research on my next destination. Hey, we got a viewer. Good to see you tonight. I am looking at going to Vietnam next, and I'll go ahead and pull up where I would like to go. Let's see here. So this is where I would like to go, Da Nang, Vietnam. So you see here that we'll go ahead and launch. Well, I'm going to wait a few for people to jump on here. Just talking about Vietnam tonight. So a lot of people, when they think about Vietnam, they're familiar with Hanoi, which is in the north, the sort of the big city in the north. I don't know if you call it the capital of the north, but the large city, and then they're familiar too with like Ha Long Bay here. And really gorgeous scenery in the north. I've heard it even gets cold in the north, actually, like in the winter. And then the other part of Vietnam that people are familiar with, I would say more specifically, people outside of Vietnam or people who have never been to Vietnam, people who aren't Vietnamese, they're familiar with Ho Chi Minh City, which is the big city in the south, the business capital. There, you got a lot of Western businesses headquartered here. Also, some Japanese businesses. I recently talked to a Japanese guy who's actually based here in Saigon. He works as a lawyer for a Japanese firm, but they have some business interests here. I didn't pry. I wasn't sure how much he could divulge as an attorney, but yeah, it's. I think the city. I'm curious what the metro population. Ho Chi Minh City. Wow, so 21 million people in the metropolitan area. Technically, it sounds like that might be more people than actually are in Bangkok, but it's not as much of a priority for me as I'm going to probably be headed to Vietnam from Bangkok, and I'd like some time in a smaller city just to have a bit of a break. And so that's why part of the reason why I'm looking at Da Nang here, and this is in central Vietnam. And I'm trying to look for, I guess you could kind of see it here. That looks like it. The Dragon Bridge. The Dragon Bridge is one of the real big highlights of Da Nang. I guess I think this is it actually. It's a little bit, it's not as easy to see at nighttime, and the lighting is very nice, but here we go. Yeah, you can see, I mean, this Dragon Bridge just looks gorgeous. It's this golden color, and they illuminate it at night. But yeah, here's another angle that you can see it from. Uh, Really, just a stunning bridge that connects the. I don't know if this is an island. Let's go back and see if there's. Well, yeah, I guess it looks like an island. No, it's a peninsula. So you connect to it from the south, but if you're looking to connect from this part of the city, then you'll just go over a bridge, and you can get over there via not just the Dragon Bridge, but there's also, so this is called the Han River Bridge here. And look at those colors. It's just stunning with the light reflecting off the water there. And the fireworks. I like the signage too. It definitely has a little bit of those Thailand vibes with the large, well lit signs. This looks like a Chinese style temple. They have similar ones here in Thailand. Anywhere there's a Chinese population, even including in my area. So I'm in Sathon, and in the south part of Sathon, there's a Chinese cemetery, and they have one of these types of I don't know if you call it a gate, but they're very ornate. And here's the beach. These fireworks displays are incredible. And then here you have the Vietnam flag. Looks like this building. I don't know if the building is covered in lights or if that's kind of something they can throw up like different displays or how that works, but it definitely looks really beautiful. The infrastructure looks great too. I've heard of Da Nang described as like Chiang Mai on the water. These beautiful umbrellas. Maybe this is them celebrating the Tet holiday. I've heard that's a really big holiday in Vietnam. But what can I pull up here? So this is, I guess, another bridge. Okay, so this is, so I guess I don't know if it's Khao Rong. This is the Dragon Bridge. Wow. So they put like a fire breathing display in the head. That's really cool. And then they have the different displays there. That just looks incredible. I hope I get to see something like that. And you see the neon lit boats underneath. I'm really getting excited. You know, I love Thailand, but it's nice to do something a little bit different, mix it up, try a different place out. You've got the mountains in the background. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. Look at this beautiful view of the city, and then you've got the mountains and the water. Um, I've heard there's a ton of like remote workers here as well. It's really among the whole digital nomad crowd. I know Mike recently went over there. There's a lot of vloggers named Mike, but the Mike in he was recently in the Philippines as well. He lives in, I think it's one of the Thai islands in the south. I think he is in Koh Samui, but yeah, he recently was over here. I think he enjoyed it. He also went down to the popular place south of Da Nang, down here, Hue, or no, Hoi An. Hoi An. I've heard Hoi An is pretty chill compared to Da Nang. Like it's not as much of a city vibe. I've also heard it's quite touristic, so it's like one of those trade-offs. Jake, I think, is actually in Da Nang right now, and I'm curious to hear his opinion on Hoi An and see if how if he enjoyed it, if he liked Da Nang a bit more, just to see what his perspective is. I love the colors; it's just stunning. Maybe not the best time for folks tonight. I notice we don't have anybody joining, so this may not be the best time. I'm happy to get on a little bit later tonight, or perhaps even later in the week. I know it's a Thursday, not probably a great day for a lot of people's schedules in terms of free time. Also, kind of tired. I'd probably use a nap or go to bed early tonight. I like the piers. Reminds me a little bit of the pier in Pattaya, the Bali High Pier. It's kind of located in a similar section where the hill comes up behind it near the Pattaya sign. This looks interesting. I haven't really taken much of a look at these islands. I don't know if they're. Yeah, I guess it looks like there's a line where you can come here from Hoi An, Ku Lao Cham. So they got some beaches. Bai Zep. By the way, I have no understanding of proper pronunciation of Vietnamese, so there's got a long way to go as far as learning. It does look quite beautiful. You got some speedboats, and I guess this is around sunset. These people are having a great time. They're really enjoying it. What else? What else about Da Nang? I guess we could check out some of this stuff up here. It does look rugged, like it does remind me a bit of the California coast. I know the water is going to be quite a bit warmer here, but even so, it definitely looks with the Rockies like California. Oh, and they have monkeys. I didn't know they have monkeys. They're probably not very friendly if they're anything like the monkeys in parts of Thailand. In Songkla, the monkeys are not very nice. They definitely bare their teeth at you, and they want your fruit, but they don't want to be friends. They're kind of pirates too, where they'll take your stuff and hold on to it for a fruit ransom. So they want you to give them fruit, and then they'll give you your stuff back. They do look cute because you catch them at the right angle where they're in a peaceful mood. But this is kind of the mountain next to Da Nang or connected to Da Nang. I guess part of, I guess it just jets out into the water. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. This is the longest time I've spent outside the United States in one continuous stretch of my life, and after almost a year in Thailand, I'm really going to miss it. I haven't really I've adjusted to Thailand to the extent that it's going to be weird to go somewhere else outside of Thailand. Right here, throughout the country, I hear people speaking Thai. Of course, the Thai, there's wonderful Thai food, the malls, like the chains that you're familiar with, like 7-Eleven is super prevalent here. Um, the malls, like here, they've got the Central, which Central seems to be the most popular mall chain here in Thailand. I've seen them in, of course, Bangkok, where I am now, but also in Chiang Mai, Hat Yai, and I don't know if Pattaya had. Sorry about the motorbike noise. I don't know if Pattaya has a Central mall, but yeah, there's Centrals throughout Thailand, and I've seen a few that you may be familiar with if you spent time in the Philippines. Robinson Mall is popular here in Thailand as well. And then the Terminal series. So there's Terminal 21. There's multiple Terminal 21s in Bangkok. There's one in Asok, and then there's also one in Sathon, and then there's one in Pattaya. And that one's really great just for having like variety. And they have, I think the artwork is really special in the Terminal 21 malls. They really go above and beyond when it comes to the artistic displays. And I think that's part of what makes them so appealing. What else? I don't know. I'm kind of curious about the malls in Da Nang because I don't often hear people talking about them like I do the Thai malls. So Da Nang Mall. Vincom. Okay. So let's pull this up. Vincom Plaza. Oh, yeah, very convenient location. I'm actually looking at staying on the peninsula. So there's a lot of nice condos on, and I think it'd be nice, like in the evenings when it cools, to come out here to the beach and just go walking on the beach, and being able to not have to cross the bridge, right? Because it seems like in a lot of cities that I've been to around the world, the bridges are like these choke points for traffic, where anytime you have a bridge, it just seems like traffic kind of has to bunch together to cross the bridge. I noticed that in Portland, Oregon, over to the Washington side. I've also noticed this I've even noticed it in Bangkok to some extent. Some of the Bangkok bridges in Bangkok can get quite congested. Of course, you see this in New York City, definitely in San Francisco. I can't count how many times I've been in traffic on the Bay Bridge, crossing from the East Bay to the city. And it's interesting because the traffic being at a standstill, you see a lot of interesting cars and people. Like it's still got some of that eclectic vibe. Of course, it's quite tech heavy these days, but yeah, I'm looking forward to checking out Vincom Plaza. You've got Vin Mart. Vin is, I guess, like the biggest brand in Vietnam. So you have like hotels. They have what are called Vin homes, that are these condo buildings. It's probably like a family of businesses that cater to different needs. Grocery store looks very nice. I mean, this is a well-stocked grocery store. You've got a lot of different kinds of oils on the left, soy sauces on the right. I won't be needing to go grocery shopping. I typically don't cook in Southeast Asia because for a single guy, it's not cheaper to always be getting takeout, but it's definitely more of a mix up on the time efficiency. I think you really start to see benefits for cooking um, when it comes to having two people, right? So if you're in a couple or maybe you're traveling with friends or something like that, that's where cooking can be a benefit. But it's still nice to see, right? I mean, it definitely gives you that confidence that if you were a single guy traveling in Vietnam and you found yourself in a relationship, then you'd be able to come here to this grocery store and get a lot of these sauces and things. I'm sure it's more economical to get other ingredients from fresh markets. But as far as prepared ingredients, I don't know that the fresh markets would carry things like soy sauce or cooking oils. The design is cool. It definitely looks different, right, than what I've seen in Thailand. Robinsons in Thailand, the design is very similar to Robinsons in the Philippines, but Vinmart's got their own thing going on. Maybe a little bit like some of the Terminal 21s, but definitely a Vietnam original type of design there. And they've got Jollibee, which will be really, really interesting because Jollibee is this really popular chain in the Philippines, and I've seen them make a lot of headway in the United States. Like over the years I've lived in California, you just see them popping up more and more in California. And part of that is the big Filipino community in California, especially in Northern California where I lived. But it's also getting popular among Americans because they're seeing this happy looking face and they're trying the food and it's good. I mean, it's tasty. Like, do I want to have it all the time? No, because as I get older, I am trying to cut back somewhat on the fast food that I have. I still have it sometimes, like I had pizza today, but I tried Royal Pizza. Just show you the box here. Yeah, Royal Pizza. It's a chain here in Bangkok. I think they've got 3 locations and I enjoyed it, but not something that I want to have all the time. And especially in Vietnam, like with Vietnam, the local food is amazing. And so I think when you're in a country like that, and I could say it about Thailand too, it's harder to like go out for fast food once you've adjusted, right? I get it when you first get here, you're like, I want something that's familiar. I want something close to home. I want something I'm used to having. But even so, it's Jollibee's invested in this store because they know that people are going to want to have it. And I think for Vietnamese people that, it's not a cheap flight necessarily to fly over the Philippines, and they can get a taste of the Philippines right here in Da Nang, as can travelers, people that have traveled to the Philippines. I really like the pies at Jollibee. They have these pies that they're just really tasty. And the service is fun too. The service is just, you get that fun vibe when you see it. I think their brand really communicates fun very well. What else do we see here? This looks like a Daiso or like a Miniso. So not necessarily a place that I need to frequent. They've got a lot of kind of knickknacks and small toys and things like that. I've been in them many times, and with Lazada, I used to occasionally need to go in there to get like a charging cable for my phone, but with Lazada, I can order it on there. Still, something like if you're a parent, you're trying to come to Vietnam with children, then it may be something where you're able to have a one-stop shop for small toys and things like that. Probably have a movie theater in here. I'm not seeing any signage, but typically in Thailand, the movie theaters are on the top floor. They got a coffee shop. I don't know if this is a view from the mall, but if so, that's a beautiful view. So what else? What else? There's also pulled up on here. Okay, so there's another mall, Indochina Mall. So this is probably going to be a smaller mall, maybe not quite as well. Oh, it's that's funny. So it's across the bridge. So you cross. I guess this is the mall the people that live on this side, like on the mainland, and then the mall Bangkok Plaza is one on the peninsula for the people that live on the peninsula. Um, got a steak restaurant, Samsonite luggage. Yeah, this looks less my speed. I mean, I'll probably check out the food court at some point. I like to have the food court because you have this air conditioned space, and yet also you have some modestly priced eats, and you see people from all walks of life. I like is the food courts in Southeast Asia are these kind of like every man or every woman type of places where everybody gets to really see a mix, as opposed to some places that cater to maybe less well-to-do people, or other places that cater to more well-off people. But yeah, not, probably not quite as popular if I just go based on reviews as the Vincom. You got almost 9,000 reviews for Vincom, whereas you have maybe 1,500 for the Indochina Mall. We could check out some of the beaches. That is really beautiful. I love the palm trees. It's got kind of a Miami vibe, maybe even like a little bit of a South Beach vibe. I'm not sure if any of you have, whether on the stream or watching a replay, have been to South Beach, Miami, but definitely has that South Beach kind of look. Also, feel free to chime in the discussion. We got a few people watching. Feel free to share any thoughts or comments, suggestions. We're taking a look at Hoi An. I guess we could look at Hue a bit. Oh, hey, great to see you, Isaac. Welcome to the stream. I hate to hear you're dealing with insomnia. I struggle with that at times myself. It's tough, man. Are you having to work today? Do you have to work later on? I guess sometimes when I struggle with insomnia and I'm awake at an early hour, it's like, I've got to stay up, and it feels like afternoon when really it's just partway through the day, and I've got this whole long work day ahead of me. But yeah, I'm doing well. I'm feeling a little bit cooped up, to be honest. It's the start of the rainy season here in Thailand. And I went out around lunchtime and had lunch at this corner restaurant, had like some chicken curry. That was really tasty. I've been walking by this restaurant a lot, but every time, half the time I walk by it, they close at like probably 5 or 6 p.m. So it's mostly for like a midday place. And so finally I got to try it. Happened to be hungry at the right time um, when they were open, and it was super hot, and I could feel it, like I could feel the humidity, and then the wind came in and it started blowing around, and I started running because I'm like 2 blocks from my apartment, and then just a total downpour just went from like hot sticky to so I ducked into like a parking garage for a condo building, and I waited until it slowed up a bit, like probably a few minutes, and then I finished the walk back to my apartment, and I've just been chilling here since. Like last summer, it didn't bother me as much. For some reason, right now, I don't know if it's just like having adjusted more to Thailand. If it's raining a lot, or if it's super rainy day, I'm like, okay, you know what? It's one of those days. Maybe best to just chill in the apartment, run the aircon, pull that humidity out of the air, and um, do some research. Right, spend some time researching the next step of my journey, and where I'd like to be going next. But yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Isaac. It's always great to engage with my subscribers and um, yeah, exactly. It does. It reminds Southeast Asia, like to me, Bangkok is the most Miami-like city because it's just like this mega city, and you've got it's just dripping all the time. Like everywhere you go in Bangkok, there's something dripping. It's air cons dripping. It's like people's like running off the roof. The water's running off the roof. There's puddles. Like you've got bright lights. It's kind of glitzy with the shopping malls. It's got a luxurious feeling. At times, it can feel seedy, but just really an interesting comparison there to Florida. And the weather is definitely reminding me of that a lot. Some people are like, how do you adjust to the heat and humidity? And coming from Tennessee, like Tennessee is super hot and humid, similar to Florida. And so that's not as much of a stretch for me. I do think it is more hot and humid here in Southeast Asia because we're so close to the equator, but it's not totally extreme feeling. This castle is beautiful. Like, wow. I did not realize Hue had a castle like that. I mean, it definitely reminds me a bit of what I saw in Japan. I love the lilies. It's interesting to me. I have to see this. It's interesting to me that the Da Nang is like more of a mid-sized city, and the attractions are not in the city, but they're to the north, like in the form of Hue, and they're to the south in the form of Hue An. And Da Nang is getting really built up a lot. I've heard there's tons of construction in Da Nang that you have to be cautious about where you rent because you may rent next to a construction site and then deal with noise that you aren't anticipating or having to kind of navigate around different kinds of construction equipment. I've heard Hue is like maybe 45 minutes north of Da Nang, and it's common to ride a bike up there. I go back and forth. Part of me wants to get into riding a bit more, just because there's a lot that you can only reasonably see on a motorbike, but it's also quite dangerous. And I don't know. Maybe I get to hire somebody to give me lessons to get me up to speed to where I feel confident riding. Here is maybe one of the more controversial tourist attractions in Da Nang called the Ba Na Hills. People online seem to have a love or hate with this. Some call it like something out of Europe with the gondolas. Others love it. To me, I lean toward like, hey, if it looks cool, I'll go check it out. I don't mind if I don't mind if it's manufactured. There's plenty of entertainment in America that's manufactured, like amusement parks and beach resorts. But yeah, I mean, it looks very artistic and very cool. It's something I'll think about. It's definitely something I'll think about. I'll probably ask some other tourists too, like when I get over there. Hey, have you been to the Bana Hills? What do you think about it? The internet tends to be pessimistic. It may be too negative on some things that are otherwise pretty cool. Like that looks really cool. I don't know if that's carved out of stone or if that's something that's like they use like a plastic base and then paint it. But yeah, that's the Ba Na Hills. They've got golf. I'm not a golfer, but that might be appealing to some folks. That seems to cover a lot of Da Nang. Haven't been there yet, so I can't speak from personal experience. This pagoda looks beautiful. They look like little Lego heads. And they've got koi. Wow. Well, I assume they're koi. I don't know if there's a Vietnamese equivalent to koi fish. It's like a monk and then a cat. This is a great photograph. I don't know what on how used, but that's a beautiful picture. I imagine too, if you're somebody that you want to look at the stars going up to Hoi An or Hue, will will probably cut down on the light pollution from the big city of Da Nang. Mm, what else? What else? Da Nang Bay. I guess I should pull this up. This looks cool. Oh, I love the colors. This reminds me so much of Phnom Penh and of Bangkok with the style, the curve. Not sure what this is. It's maybe just a neighborhood or something like that. Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like a neighborhood. They've got a 3D art, 3D museum art. Oh yeah, this looks cool. These people are having a blast. She's thrilled. Okay, that's a little bit dark. Oh, okay, that's just art. Okay, I was like, is this supposed to be a gorilla in bad shape? But yeah, that looks really cool. This is something I want to check out. I had no idea about this 3D art museum. I've never heard anybody mention it. Oh wow, with the croc. Love the elephant. Yeah, this is neat. I got to check this out. I got to make a note to go check out the 3D art museum. Gigantic kitty with the cheese and the beautiful sea turtle. Yeah, somebody or probably a team of people put a lot of effort into this, and I could really appreciate it. T-Rex. Very cool. Yeah, that looks really neat. Point to check out the 3D art museum. Oh, they got gaming. I didn't realize they had gaming in Vietnam. Mm. Furama. So Furama is must be just popular throughout Southeast Asia. There's a Furama building, at least one Furama building here in Bangkok. There's also one in Chiang Mai, Chinese chain. Um, But yeah, I'm sure this resort's really nice. The reviews are fantastic. It's a five-star hotel, yeah. For 140 US equivalent per night. This looks really nice. Yeah, I mentioned people that are high rollers, or maybe they're coming for a special holiday, special occasion, then this is going to be a fantastic place to stay by the looks of it. I guess we could take a look at some of the restaurants. I am curious about the food because I've eaten a lot of Vietnamese food in the US. I used to go to this restaurant with my ex-girlfriend back in Nashville a lot called Miss Saigon. And, you know, I recognize Da Nang is not in the South, although there's going to be some Southern Vietnamese food there. And I'll be trying the Vietnamese food. I don't like the word like home turf, but like, where it originated and with a lot of these ingredients, super fresh, and it looks really good. I have no idea what this is. It's not familiar to me. Maybe some kind of egg or pancake. They look like tacos, to be honest. You've got mushroom, you've got squid, and you've got pork. That looks like pork. And then you've got spring rolls. Looks like chicken or pork skewers. Yeah, this Bep Quan looks fantastic. I love that. I haven't seen a neat little straw like this in forever. They used to be a lot more popular in America back in the day. For whatever reason, they'd fallen out of fashion, but I always thought they were a really fun way to have some kind of drink. Maybe this is like a limeade or maybe a lemonade with some lime in it. And so with the Vietnamese dong, it's like $1 is 25,000 dong. So each of these would be around $4. Mixed banana flour salad, fresh spring roll, so it's a rice pancake. So it was a pancake, and then Vietnamese fried rice. This dish, I don't know what it's called, but I've had it quite a few times in Thailand. This vegetable, I like it a lot. That looks like it may even have some shrimp or some prawns in it, and I am a fan. Yeah, all this stuff looks great. I'm looking forward to this, to be able to have additional dishes at a fraction of the price that I'd pay in the United States. Sounds great to me. They've got a soccer field. I'm not much of a soccer player, but it might not be bad to pick up just to get some exercise. I think a lot of people really enjoy running on the beach here. I've seen a lot of videos and pictures of people running up and down this beach, and that's what's so cool about like a beach city like this, is that you do have that space to get a workout in. I've also heard they have some outdoor public workout areas. I'm not sure where those are located, but I'll definitely talk about it when I get over there. With the heat, it does make me lean toward just getting a gym membership, because I find it to be, I don't know what about the heat causes it, but I struggle to get the same invigorated feeling that I can get when it's a little bit cooler and I can really go in and work out hard and get my reps in and then cool off and not be pouring sweat. Sweat definitely like holds you back too on the grips. Like if you're trying to do pull-ups or something like that, my hands get sweaty and my arms get sweaty and my face is dripping. May just be me being Indian, but like sweating a lot definitely impacts my workout. Okay, calisthenics park. So this might be one of those. Let's check it out if they. Yeah, okay. So they've got pull-up bars. These look nice. That may be the limit of what they have at this specific park, but really nice to have these in public spaces. You just don't see them as often in America, or if you have them, they're more designed for kids. It's probably like a liability thing. America is a really litigious country where people are afraid to take risks because of uh, being afraid of getting sued, but you don't have that in Southeast Asia. This looks like a market, Cho Bak Mayan. So this must be like I don't know if you call it a wet market because a lot of this stuff looked like dry and packaged goods, but probably a place to get some decent value. Looks like she's got some seafood here. Oh, is that durian? That looks like durian. Very cool. Hmm. Oh, a vintage shop, spa. That seems to be the extent of it. Part of me, like if I go to Vietnam for, say, a few months, we'll scroll out here because I've been thinking I just want to go for a month and then go on to my next destination. But I also suspect because my expectations aren't super high, that I might really enjoy it because that's happened every time I go into a country with low expectations. I end up really, really enjoying myself and wanting more time there. So I'm wondering if it's going to be the same with Vietnam, where I go in not expecting a lot, and then I'm like, oh wow, this is amazing. I want to stay here for the max duration of my visa. And the difference is really cheap. Like for 1 month, it's 25 bucks. For 3 months, like 90 days, it's 50 bucks. So $25 difference. Not that much money. If you think about like the difference, of getting an extra couple of months, it's just such an economical place that, yeah, in spending 3 months, like I could do 2 months in Da Nang, uh, just knocking out work and getting some things done, and then take like, I don't know, a month in Hanoi, or maybe even do like 2.5 months in Da Nang and then finish up with a couple of weeks in Hanoi. I wouldn't mind a break from the bigger cities just because they can be overwhelming. But Hanoi, I know like my grandfather was there during the Vietnam War, and it'd be really interesting to see some of the history behind that, see some of the museums they have, specifically like some museums that are dedicated to the subject. It's a mega city though, and mega cities can be overwhelming, especially when you've never been to a country. I find that if you go to the mega cities in a country, if it has what I would call a mega city, and you haven't ever spent time there before, it can be really overwhelming. Like I was overwhelmed when I came to Bangkok for the first time because I had just never been in such a hustling and bustling place where there's just such high population density. There's people everywhere. There's motorbikes going in every direction. It can be overwhelming for somebody who's never been there. And of course, I don't speak Vietnamese, so that's another layer there of difficulty. This looks like a beautiful park here. It looks like Kitty Park, or oh, this must be the lake. There's this big lake in Hanoi. Let's back it up here. Ho Tay Lake. I've heard of this lake, and it's really popular to have some Vietnamese coffee and then come and sit down by the lake and enjoy just like, people watching and looking at the different, yeah, the different temples and things like that. Hey, Code, good to see you, man. How are you doing? I'm gonna get some water. My throat is dried out. How are you doing tonight, Code? We're just taking a look at the country that you're in right now. Vietnam. I'm looking at Hanoi, but I'm going back and forth, like whether how long I want to stay in Vietnam. My original plan was to come for 30 days and do all that in Da Nang. Maybe spend a night in Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh. Okay, yeah. So Hanoi, you're saying the air pollution is rough right now. That's a good call. It was pretty rough in Bangkok, and now that the rainy season is here, it's cleared up a lot. AQI is decent right now. It's like around 50, 51. But thank you for the call out, Code. I'd like to go at some point. If their AQI is rough right now, it may be something that happens on a subsequent visit. Because I'm in need of some fresh air, and yeah, I think Da Nang is going to fit the bill there. Maybe I fly into Da Nang and then I fly to my next destination out of Ho Chi Minh City. And I need to check in with you, Code. I'm curious about something. When I'm filling out my Vietnam visa application, do I have to exit through the airport I specify? Because if I decide I want to fly out of Da Nang and not have to, fool with flying down to Ho Chi Minh City, I'm wondering if that will cause me issues on exit. Because I want to go. There's three folks watching this, and I'm sure people will catch it on the next one. I wanted to make it a surprise, but I am interested in going to the Philippines next. Okay, for sure. I may post in the Vietnam expats subreddit or something like that and just ask, because it's it's definitely cheaper to fly out of Saigon, but depending on timing, it may just be more efficient for me to fly out of Da Nang. And I don't know, like, I feel rushed whenever I come to a city for a night. So maybe it's something where I spend 2 months in Da Nang or 2.5 months in Da Nang, and then I go to Ho Chi Minh City for like 2 weeks. And then I have time to immerse myself in the city, really explore, enjoy it. And then by the time I'm like, okay, I need a break from the big city, I'll be hopping on a plane to the Philippines. Isaac says, do you know how much you spend on average per month in Thailand or Asia? So that's a great question, Isaac. It depends on the duration. So I guess what I'd like for you to clarify, if you can, Isaac, is, are you asking more in terms of vacation mode or more in terms of living? And I actually did a video addressing part of this question, but my laptop hard drive is filled up and I've struggled a little bit to clear it back down. I want to get that video edited, knocked out, and uploaded, but it's a persisting issue. And if I want to put out a video every other day, oh, that's funny. So yeah, definitely. I learned a lot in my SDR role. It was stressful in many ways, but I also learned a ton from that role. But yeah, so if I'm visiting Southeast Asia, Isaac, if I'm coming over here and I'm going to do a month in Thailand, a month in Vietnam, and a month in Malaysia, just for sake of discussion, I've got 90 days for whatever reason, just picking an arbitrary number. Then I'm going to look at it like I'll spend 1,500 a month, maybe. Okay, yeah. So we'll talk about vacation mode first, and then we'll talk about uh, long-term living. So if I'm here on vacation mode, typically I'm not going to be as cost conscious, right? Because I'm in vacation mode. I'm there to enjoy myself. I want to get the most out of it. I'm also more willing to exhaust myself because it's like, okay, get as much out of this experience as you can for, sorry, excuse me, for your time, and then go back home exhausted and, get ready to go back to normal life. So I would say if you're here on vacation mode as a single guy, anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 a month is what I would budget, including flights. Now, you're not going to necessarily be flying every other day, right? I found that includes flying a couple of times a month, staying in decent accommodation, not luxury accommodation, but like something that I'd be comfortable with. Like my studio here in Bangkok, you can see it's not super huge. It's, there's I've got my own bathroom in there. There's my bed. I've got a small balcony there, and this is running at $350 equivalent, this studio. But that's the monthly rate, right? So if let's say you're talking about Vietnam, right? You're coming in, you're thinking, I want to do 10 days. Let's back up. Not that. Let's back up here. You're saying, let's just say you're saying that you want to do 10 days Hanoi, 10 days Da Nang, and then 10 days down here in Ho Chi Minh City. Well, then, you'll want to budget for a higher daily rate, right? So you may be getting a hotel in each of those cities and paying a daily rate where if you were booking for a month, you might pay $10 a day. Instead, you're paying, say, $15, $20 a day. But I would say anywhere from that 1,500 to 2,000 a month, overshoot that, like have emergency funds, because you never know what will happen, especially if I've never been to any of these countries before. I find the first time I go to any country is going to be the most expensive because there's this big learning curve. I don't know, the details about how to operate there. I don't know about the wireless carriers. I don't know about the local cuisine. And then, for normal living, I would say more like in the 12 to 1,500 per month range is good. You may not spend it all, right? Like if I were you, I'd rather overshoot what I'm going to spend and have some extra left over. Maybe, if you overshoot what you think you'll need, you'll be able to really live it up your last month or something like that. I'm not doing that because this has kind of been an indeterminate trip, right? So for me, I aim to keep my expenses to around 1,200 per month, including flights, including visas and things like that. But that also gives me room. Like I need to replace my shoes pretty soon. That's going to be $60. So fortunately, I've got that money. And yeah, that's kind of the way I would split it up is like 1,500 to 2,000 a month as a single guy in vacation mode. And if you're in more like living mode, 12 to 1,500 a month, because you're going to, in your living mode, you'll be able to do the month-long rentals is going to bring your cost per day down. Like right now, I'm pricing out my trip to, Vietnam and Da Nang. And so I'm not going to be paying, $20 a night or $30 a night for a hotel. I'm looking at condos on Airbnb. I'm looking at paying like anywhere from like right around $300 for a month stay. But there is some limitation there, right? I'm limited to the same building. I'm limited to the same neighborhood. I can get out and go around, but still, keeping me in that same city. So that's the trade-off there. As a rule of thumb, the slower you travel, the more cost-effective that things become. You also, the financial advantage of doing the slower travel is that if I'm in the same place for a month, I start to learn basic words in that language. That helps me reduce expenses. I also find places or things that are a good value for money. Like when I'm new to a place, I might hit up McDonald's or I might hit up the malls to eat because I don't know where I am. I don't know exactly what I'm doing. And I'm a little bit nervous about it. Like, can I try this dish? I'm not so sure. Like even coming to Thailand, when I first got to Thailand, I would just walk around and look at restaurants and just have no idea what they're serving because the menus are in Thai and the people only speak Thai and I have no idea what they're serving up. I'm sure it's great, but if I don't know what it is, I'm not going to try it. But if you're there for a month, then you're kind of forced, like, okay, this spot is covered up with locals, like tons of local people are eating there. And so I'm going to give them a shot. And if I don't like it, whatever, it was like $2 or $3, maybe it was $4. Who cares? That's a cheap lesson. Generally speaking too, like, I'm going to zoom out and give you another tip, Isaac. The economics of Southeast Asia, in my personal experience, are that the mainland here tends to be more economical than the islands. So tends to be more economical than Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, Indonesia. Vietnam tends to be the cheapest. I've heard Laos is cheap as well, but I've also heard there's not a lot to do in Laos by comparison. Myanmar, I would call off limits for right now, just due to various circumstances. You can check that out, when you have some time. So Vietnam tends to be the cheapest. I would say Thailand is next. Then Cambodia. Cambodia is dollarized, and everything in Cambodia, well, much of what you can have in Cambodia is imported to Thailand or Vietnam and then imported a second time to Cambodia. So you'd be shocked at how expensive things can be in Cambodia, because it has a reputation for being economical, but I found it to be more expensive. Next, I would say Malaysia. Malaysia's like a former British colony. You have tons of English there. It's quite developed. In Kuala Lumpur, very modern city, great public transportation. You have modern shopping malls everywhere. I have a buddy from Malaysia that, when we communicate and hang out, half the time I might think of him as an American or something, just because his English is so good and he's so effective at communicating that there's not really that barrier. And we relate a lot as well culturally. Next, I would say I'm going to leave Brunei out of this because it's a fairly small country that is, doesn't get the same volume of tourism as, some of these others. Next, I would say Philippines. Philippines is going to be more expensive than all of these except for Singapore. Part of what makes Malaysia cheaper than the Philippines is that they have a large oil and gas industry presence. And so they have they have subsidized fuel basically, and that helps bring costs down. I will say international food was a great deal in Malaysia. I personally enjoy international cuisine, and that was something that was cheaper than expected, but the accommodations in Malaysia were more expensive than Thailand, in my experience, and more expensive than Cambodia. Cambodia actually had affordable accommodation. I just found the food to be expensive in Cambodia. And also, some services were more expensive just due to the dollarization. And international cuisine was more expensive in Cambodia as well than Malaysia. And then the Philippines, I would call the second, most expensive, because you're far out here in the middle of the ocean, and you're far away from the mainland. Everything has to be flown in or brought in by boat, which drives up costs. You also have a lot of remittances. So a lot of people sending money to the Philippines from overseas. And so your currency doesn't have that same punch in terms of conversion rates that you would have in some of these other mainland destinations. Yeah, I was shocked at the costs of some things when I went to the Philippines 4 years ago, because some things were more expensive than they would be in America. Like I remember looking at this menu for a restaurant, and the steak was like, probably 50% more expensive than it would be in America. So yeah, Philippines is definitely not the most budget friendly place, and more so it's, the more you want to travel around, that's where the Philippines really adds up, is you can't just get in a car or a bus like you can in the mainland. You typically have to get on a boat or a plane, and that's more costly. And then Singapore is the Mac Daddy as far as expenses go. It's the most expensive country in Southeast Asia. I went for a little under a week, and I liked it a lot, but certainly it's also quite orderly. So if you want something that's different from what you're used to, it's somewhat different, but it's so developed you don't necessarily feel like you're in a totally different world. Like it was very predictable, very organized. You've got buses and transit all over the country. You've got definitely a walkability factor in most of the eastern neighborhoods of Singapore. Like most of this part of Singapore are really walkable. Not so much up here, not so much on the west side. I took a bus across Singapore. I across the country, and it was like a 3 hour ride. Um, I didn't make it to Singapore Zoo. That's something I'd like to do next time. But Singapore is really cool. It's just something that's not going. The rules aren't going to apply to as much. You're going to easily be paying like 70, $80 a night for a hotel, and meals are going to run you at least $10. I remember seeing a hamburger was like 17 US equivalent in Singapore. So not the most budget friendly. And yeah, Cambodia is surprisingly expensive. It's kind of shocking because, you know, it's not as well known as Thailand in some ways. Just look at, you know, inbound arrival numbers. I liked it a lot. I felt like Cambodia was underrated, but yeah, certainly like for any kind of a Western style conveniences, you're going to pay a premium in Cambodia. And also in Cambodia, yeah, I mentioned a few times the dollarization, but also you have a lot of Western brands in Cambodia that are charging comparable prices to what they would charge in Western democracies. And this is different than Thailand that has plenty of domestic brands. I'd also say in Cambodia, the local cuisine is not as well known. People are not as familiar with it as, say, Thai food. So when I was in Cambodia, I found myself eating a lot of seafood and a lot of Indian food because I started eating the seafood. There's like some fantastic seafood restaurants in Phnom Penh, but then I talked to some local friends and they were like, "Yeah, I wouldn't eat the seafood here." So you know, that was their words, not mine. I didn't have any issues, but that's something to think about. Why don't we zoom in here on Phnom Penh? It's a decent place to get clothes. I will say, like, if you want to do some shopping, I did find some decent value there as far as getting clothing. Um, they have that small vibe that some of the surrounding countries have. This is Orusai Market. Really, this looks like they've updated part of it. I don't remember seeing that when I was there last time. This is what I'm more familiar with the Orusai Market. It's got this like dome on it and all these vendors underneath. The people were very friendly. I found the people to be friendly. The coffee was some of the best I've had. Now, I haven't been to Vietnam yet, but the coffee in Phnom Penh was fantastic. I think I paid around $2 for one of the best cups of coffee I've ever had. I can't think of the name. It was somewhere in, I can't remember where it was in the city. Maybe it was Riverside, but it was this guy that like he supplied all the coffee shops in Phnom Penh with beans, and so um, he really had fantastic, like, just the whole process was excellent. And I'd love to go back to Cambodia at some point because I felt like it was underrated. There's also like, you know, some sad history there, which is worth learning about. Really, an educational experience. One of the most educational experiences I had in my time in Southeast Asia. Next time I go, I want to make it over to this. So there's this. I guess it's a peninsula. Yeah, it's a peninsula, and I never really made it over the bridge because I was just having so much fun in this main part. Um, you know, they have some modern shopping malls full, like I said, a lot of imported goods, different than Thailand, which has more domestic production. They have this mall Soria. Lots and lots of imported goods, which, you know, people have mixed feelings about. Some people, you know, they want more domestic stuff. I thought it was neat. I mean, it's super modern. They're building skyscrapers everywhere. It's got a rapidly developing feel. The Royal Palace is beautiful too, like absolutely stunning. And they've got this really nice park near the Royal Palace where everybody gets together around dusk. I think the best thing I did in Phnom Penh was a river cruise. So I had stored up a bunch of Chase credit card points, and then I did this river cruise on the Mekong, and they also served a buffet on it. And I met the other travelers on this cruise, and they were all Filipino, and so they really had a lot to tell me about the Philippines because I was actually preparing to go to the Philippines after Cambodia, and they had a lot to share with me about it. They were really lovely people. It was maybe 3 or 4 hours, and the views were gorgeous. And I wouldn't mind doing that cruise again. And the people working on the boat were so nice, like so friendly. Um, yeah, Thailand, I feel is the in the region. Like I said, I haven't been to Vietnam or Indonesia yet, but best value for money. Your prices are going to be fairly, reasonable, especially outside of Bangkok and the islands. Bangkok and in the islands, the prices can be higher, not necessarily only because of accommodation, but also just opportunities to spend money. I still think of Chiang Mai as offering among the best values for money of any country I've been or any city I've been to in the world. I lived in Chiang Mai for a while, and if you're trying to live somewhere affordable, work online, get some stuff done, it's hard to beat Chiang Mai. Some people call it overrated because they're looking for more of like a nightlife scene. It doesn't have that to the extent that Bangkok has. But for somebody like me, that's just more of a chill, laid back person, uh, I definitely love Chiang Mai. It's such a beautiful city. Um, and then Code is in Vietnam right now, and he's mentioned, it's not as popular among return visitors. I've heard that as well. I've read that stat as well. There's not as many that go back, and that's something I'm going to be keeping in mind. That it may be a situation where I'm feeling like, what, once was enough. I'm glad I saw it, but it's not necessarily a place that I'm rushing back to. That's not a critique or criticism of it. There's plenty of other places in the world that are wonderful places that I don't see myself going back to soon. I think Colombia is one of those places because I loved Colombia, but when I was there, my friends were just constantly warning me about safety issues. Like the hotel I stayed in Medellin, we can pull that up actually. Hotel Casa Estadio. Casa Estadio. I think this is, yeah. So I stayed here. So I stayed at this hotel in Medellin. Back then, it was like 20, maybe $15 a night, something like that. And the owner, I want to say, I thought it was on Avenida Colombia. I don't know if this is the one. Anyway, he would keep the door locked, and when you'd go to exit, he'd unlock the door and let you out, and when you came back, he'd unlock the door and let you back in. And so I never had issues in Colombia, but that definitely didn't add to my good feelings. And then when I was in Bogota, we go up down to Bogota. I was staying in the north part of the city, and these are the nicest neighborhoods in the city: Usaquén and El Chico, Chico Norte. And so I'm here, and I was walking like 5 blocks, maybe 6 blocks to my hotel from my buddy's apartment. And he was like, man, even 5 or 6 blocks, like you're going to get robbed, take a cab. And I was like, it's just 5 or 6 blocks. Like we're surrounded by embassies, passing by the Ecuadorian embassy, the Japanese embassy. I'm like, I don't know. But when you have those experiences with locals, you really have to think in your mind safe. So not an issue with Colombia. I'd love to go back. I know it waxes and wanes in terms of safety. I didn't personally have issues, but my friends warned me that much. Like I asked my buddy in Colombia, in Bogota, like, where do you want to go next? Because he's also a traveling guy. And he was like, well, I want to move to Portugal. So he didn't mention another place in Latin America. And I know also my friends in Mexico, I asked them where they're interested to travel. And they said, we're interested in the US. And I was like, well, why not Latin America? And they're like, well, it's very similar to what we're accustomed to. So I got a runny nose. I'm going to blow my nose, guys. I don't like the sound of congested. Ugh. Sounded like I've been in Colombia. Okay, that's a lot better. I can breathe a lot better. It's pouring down rain right now. I don't know. I doubt you guys can hear it, but yeah, and that's what I heard about Cambodia, Code. Now, I didn't get out of the city of Phnom Penh, but a lot of people told me, hey, Phnom Penh, it's rough around the edges. Like, be careful. I didn't have any issues there. The worst experience I had there was I approached a guy trying to figure out where I was in, we can go back to Phnom Penh. The worst experience I had is I was out here by National Stadium, and I asked the guy for directions, and he kind of growled no English at me. He didn't physically, do anything, but he just seemed uncomfortable or put off by that question. And so that was the only negative experience I had. Other than that, I had a freaking blast in Phnom Penh. I mean, it was just a wild party a wild party town, but more in line with my kind of party. How to explain it? I like to party with local people, and in Phnom I did that and had a lot of fun. I find that in some places when you're partying more with foreigners. No offense to foreign people, I'm a foreigner, but if I wanted to party with Western people, I just go party in America because I have plenty of friends that like to party, and we have all these shared experiences. And so that's, I don't know. I haven't enjoyed partying with tourists as much as I've enjoyed partying with locals. Partying with locals is something I was able to do here and something I'd like to do again in the future. Isaac says, do you feel less stressed out there than in the USA? Oh, 100%. America, if I didn't get out of America, I mean, I was really bad mood when I left America last summer. I mean, I was really upset because I dealt with a stressful job and I worked it for a year. I saved 70% of my income. So you can imagine living on 30% of your income can be very stressful because I was in the San Francisco area, and we can just pull up. I was working, I'm not going to specify my office, but I was working in downtown Oakland, living up here in Berkeley. And so I would just do my best to avoid spending money. I was like, I need to save every penny I possibly can. And I did so, but it was stressful. And then I went back to Tennessee, which is its own version of stressful, where I'm from. And, people in America are just rude and often nasty, sarcastic. Not everybody's like that, but there's a large chunk of the population that is just unpleasant to be around. I don't even want to talk to them because the trust, America is a low trust society. That's one of the best ways I could put it, is that America is a low trust society. You cannot trust other people. I think that if you trust people blindly in America, you're naive or you're a moron. And so you stick to yourself, right? Especially if you're somebody that's living in a big city, maybe not your hometown. You just can't have a social life. Even though I can communicate with people, I find people to just be sizing you up, trying to figure out what they can get out of you. And if they can't get anything out of you, they don't really put a lot of effort into conversation or a relationship. I don't like American culture either. I feel like it's just this money uber alles culture where, because it's so expensive, because people come to America explicitly to make money, that money is just, it's a money culture. Like, it's just constantly on your mind. You're constantly trying to figure out how to avoid spending it, or how to get more for your money, or how to make more money. And people don't really live life like they're, and to some extent, Japan is a high trust country, but I have a buddy from Japan that I've talked about this with, and he said all of the developed countries are like that. Even though you have this affinity for Japan, Alex, like, we still have a lot of that financial stress. It's still expensive for young people. Like all the developed countries, the older people tend to be happy and the younger people tend to be unhappy because the population breakdown is such that the young people are having to pay higher and higher taxes to cover all of these cash and prize benefits that the older generations have voted in for themselves. And so that's what you experience in the West. And so, you're hustling and grinding, and you don't necessarily feel like you are, you're benefiting from all of the work. Yeah, it's a low trust society. I mean, it's very unfortunate because the United States used to be a high trust country. You used to be able to trust people. People used to talk to their neighbors. People used to socialize more. But because of a lot of the bad decision making, the bailout of the banks in '08 really contributed to a lot of these issues, because that was a turning point where people thought, oh, the bad guys are going to pay. And then the bad guys get bailed out of their poor decision making, and the general public is left footing the bill, which, they basically turned on the money printer. They put in artificially low interest rates to benefit the asset holders, the asset owners. And so, I mean, America has lost a lot of what makes it special. A lot of people say, oh, well, America's not special and that it's awesome to be rich. It's like, no, America used to be awesome that you didn't have to be rich to enjoy your life. And now it's just like a lot of other countries. I call it the Latinization. I don't mean in terms of demographics. I mean that it's much more similar to Latin America in terms of corruption and, social unrest and a lack of trust, crime, homelessness, just a lot of these problems that, they were common in, this half of the world, except for America, except for Canada. But now it's, it's just not what it used to be. It's not what it used to be. It's past its peak. I would call it just like a civilization in decline. I think it's going to look more like Brazil in the future, where you've got high crime. People have to stay in gated compounds, which they already do. Like you go to San Francisco, there's all kinds of gated communities where the rich people just try to hide out from the general public. Its best days are behind it. I would say America was at its peak from the post-World War II era, where it was the only country that wasn't wiped out in World War II. And you had a lot of domestic manufacturing that really spread the money around. And up until I would say 2007. So there was this 50-year period where it was unequivocally number one in the world, great opportunities to move up. Real estate was affordable compared to incomes. You had intact families. You had a lot of these things that contribute to a healthy society, a healthy civilization. Some of it would say, it started with the Vietnam War, where it was the first war America lost. And it was very clear we were no longer the good guys, where I think pre-Vietnam War or pre-Korean War, it was understood Americans, those are the good guys. But now I don't think that people really feel like the U.S. is necessarily the good guys. Not necessarily the people, but the powers that be in the U.S. I mean, I don't think they're the good guys. And, some people, especially older people in America, get offended when I say that, especially conservative older people back in America, like the boomers. Oh, how could you? Some boomers. By the way, I know some awesome boomers, but some not so awesome boomers. Oh, how could you say that? This is the greatest country in the world. We're number one. Rah, rah, rah. We're a force of good. No, not nonsense. America is a country that is there to serve the elites, global interests, large corporations at the expense of whoever they can throw into the meat grinder to pay taxes. Asia, young men should come to Asia, try it out. It may not work out, you may find that you don't like the weather, right? The weather is a big adjustment for a lot of Americans. You may find that the language barrier is tough in a place like Thailand or Vietnam. And I say this because I don't like the idea of selling the dream. I don't like this idea of for $9.99, just follow my advice and your life's going to be perfect, right? But I look at it like it's worth a shot. When I came to Thailand 6 years ago, I was 25, and the trip to Thailand was full of what I call life affirming experiences. Back in America, I felt like I was just an extra. I felt like I wasn't really valued by society and not really appreciated. And I went to Thailand, and you're getting called handsome man, and you're, having these wonderful dates, and um, you're having these experiences with other Asian people. Like, not as saying you're Asian, but like for me anyway, I was like, oh wow, like Asian culture is the norm here. Seen as I'm not seen as like uh, a weirdo, right? Because where I grew up, there's very few Asian people. So people are like, why do you eat that? And like, why does your grandma talk like that? Why doesn't she talk like American? Even though my grandma came to America in 1950 at the age of 19, even at 90 years old, 90 something years old, she's still looked at as a foreigner. So in America, Asians are perpetual foreigners. No matter what you do, you're going to be looked at as an outsider. I noticed this in some, not all, but some sales organizations where, you know, most Asian people are in the technical side, and I wasn't, and so you definitely feel a bit weird. Now that's not totally over the top, like, and as you go up the ladder in sales, there's more and more Asian people, but definitely toward the bottom rungs, it's, do you want to talk about football, or do you want to talk about basketball? Like, and it's just the same conversations over and over again. It's like, I don't watch either of those sports. Nothing wrong with them. I think it's awesome if people have a way to be physically fit and active and healthy, but those just aren't my personal interests. But yeah, if you're 25 and you're single, you don't have obligations, I would say save up, like, some money, and buy yourself, your first time over, you might buy a round trip ticket, maybe go for like 2 or 3 months, check out a few countries, see what you think. Maybe load up a dating app, meet up with some nice young ladies, ask them to help you out as your guide to show you around town, uh, and go from there. Um, it, you know, it doesn't work for everybody. I had a subscriber from the UK. He was like 19 or 20, and I helped guide him. He chose the Philippines, and he gets a condo for a month, and then he wimps out. He's like, I'm afraid to leave the condo, even though he's an IT park, the nicest. I'll show you the neighborhood he was in. And I say this not to scare you, but it's not, I don't think of Southeast Asia as the dream. I think of it as potentially an awesome alternative to people whose lives are awesome in America, which there are some people who have great lives in America. They've got an intact family, they've got assets, they've got kids, they're in a happy marriage. There's no reason to leave. You freaking got the American dream that doesn't exist for a lot of people. But if you're not one of those people, give it a shot. But yeah, so he's in IT Park, and let's see, we'll show you Cebu IT Park. So he's in this neighborhood, and he's telling me he's afraid to walk around at night. Oh gosh, it's just, I don't, people keep looking at me and staring at me, and I'm picking on him a little bit, but I was just like, dude, you're being ridiculous. Just like go out for a while, just, get out of your shell. And he kept refusing, and breaks down crying at one point. And I'm like, man, if you don't give it a shot, like, that's on you. You spent the money to fly over there, and you're going to lose your deposit. So he lasts a week, like basically hiding out in his condo, and then gets on a flight and goes back to UK. I have no idea what happened to him. He had never had a girlfriend before, but he had a girlfriend for the week he was there. He actually met a woman, and went and met up with her. She was in a rougher part of the city, and he kept talking about how sketched out he was, and like couldn't differentiate between this neighborhood and any of the other neighborhoods. And I'm like, IT Park is a premier neighborhood in Southeast Asia. Like, if you can't make it in IT Park, Cebu, maybe the Philippines isn't for you. And, that would be there's equivalent of IT Park in Thailand, and Bangkok, equivalent in Saigon. There's certain districts like that are really nice, but some people just get out of their own and scared. Now you are a bit older than the 20-year-old. You're 20, so you probably have a little bit more life experience under your belt. But yeah, it's worth a shot. I mean, it's what I look at it like worst case scenario. You find out it's not for you. You go back home and resume your life. Some people would say, "Oh, you failed. If it doesn't work out for you, you failed." Well, and you're a loser. Well, if I'm a loser before the trip, then what is it like? Am I a loser because I go back home and resume my life? So then you're just calling me a loser. The trip has no bearing on whether I'm successful or not, right? So it's you're risking the cost of the flight, the cost of your accommodation. It's a calculated risk in my mind that's worthwhile to take, especially for unhappy young men. And there's so much to see and do in the world. People will say, "Oh, how do you know you'll like it?" Well, you can look at vlogs, right? You can pull up vlogs from any of these countries, any of these cities, and you can see what it's like to be walking around. You can even pull up, there's videos of people just walking around, just holding a camera and walking around these neighborhoods, and you can see what it looks like on the ground. So there's just so much information that exists nowadays that didn't exist in the past, and it's worth a shot, right? It's worth a shot, and the other part of that too is you may find, well, I enjoy being outside of America, but Southeast Asia isn't for me. I'm going to go give Latin America a chance or something like that. So there's just so much variety in the world, and as long as you're cautious, like you do your research, you're probably not going to run into issues. I've spent almost 2 years of my life outside of the United States, and they've been the best times of my life as an adult. Like, I have no regrets. And some people will say, well, you should just wait till retirement age. Well, one, my grandfather had his first heart attack at 38 years old. So I'm almost 32. That, maybe I have my first one at 38. Am I going to be doing a lot of world travel after that? If that were to happen, probably not. So you're not going to be a young man forever. And you're around your peak physical health and fitness and well-being. And so a lot of these activities that you're going to want to try in some of these countries are not going to be as possible when you're at retirement age. It's one thing to go snorkeling in the Philippines when you're 27. It's another thing entirely when you're 67, right? No judgment to the older guys. I know that a lot of the older guys are discovering it for the first time, but there's just a lot of these things that you can't do to the same effect. And dating too, right? Like, a lot of older guys that date in Southeast Asia feel that it's transactional. Well, when you're a younger man, it's not going to be transactional. There's going to be a lot more genuine desire there, in my personal opinion. Like, as far as like most people want to date, like at least most women I've met want to date guys their own age, maybe a little bit older, and you have more in common. You probably watch some of the same TV shows, you listen to some of the same music, you have some of the same interests. They're going to be able to keep up with you. Like, hey, babe, let's go for a hike. Well, you can do that, right? That's not an off limits thing. Hey, let's go check out this beach. Hey, let's get adventurous and try out some interesting cuisine. Hey, Tony, good to see you. Welcome to the stream. Great to see you this morning, right? It's morning in Canada right now. Yeah, so Hoshia, I don't think so. So I think that with Americans, then there's a few things that go into this. So one, I find that people are now. I can't speak for the ugly American stereotype, right? The Americans that are loud and brash and coming in and you do this and you do that and acting like throwing their little bit of little bit of pocket change around makes them an all-powerful god or whatever. But from my perspective, people have been welcoming to me. So very few Americans actually have a passport. That's changing. More Americans than ever got a passport last year, and I expect that number to keep going up. The passport backlog is now like, if you're getting a fresh passport in America, I think it's like a 4-month wait. And that's part of why I'm not going back, is I don't want to wait 4 months to to replace my passport. So mine expires next summer. I plan to get it replaced this winter. And if you're outside the country, then you can get a replacement in 3 weeks. So they prioritize Americans outside of America when it comes to replacing passports. But no, I find most people don't hold Americans to that standard. Just as when I go to any country, I don't. I separate the people from the powers that be, and in any country I go to, and I think Americans are treated fine. I mean, most people just want to do business. I found that in every country I go to, most people want similar things. People have different ways of getting those things. Most people want to take care of their families. Most people want to be well fed. Most people want to have a safe place to live. Most people are not caught up and concerned about where you're from. Like, most people ask me, where are you from? Now in America, I get asked where I'm from, and I tell them, and then they say, oh, it's not good enough. Where are your parents from? But when I go to other countries and people ask me where I'm from, I tell them United States, and they just smile and nod. It's not a big deal at all to them. And I think that a lot of people are often excited that you're giving their country a chance, that you want to visit their country, that you want to see what it's about, that you're open-minded enough to come over. I think there's also this belief that you probably have some disposable income, because international flights are expensive. So they figure, hey, if this guy or this gal has the disposable funds to come over to this part of the world, they must be a half decent person. Now, we know that's not always the case. There are definitely some broke expats out there. But I think that, as long as you maintain a positive attitude, you're friendly, you're patient, then you're going to receive the same in return. Yeah, I mean, code says open air prison. I think of America as an open air asylum, but not that different, when it really gets down to it. Code says if you're brown or Asian, yes. Yeah, it's a curious thing. Well, yeah, I think it's a curious thing, but it's also like an objectification thing. It's a reductionist perspective. I get it as one of the first questions too, which is kind of inappropriate to me. Like, it's just, and to be fair, it's often by people who have had, a little too much to drink, but it's like, why not try to get to know me? Like, when I'm in Asia, I never get asked about my ethnicity. In fact, a lot of people in Asia look at me as like, they think I'm like white European. I've in Cambodia, one of my friends, Lena, she got married recently, but she told me, you look so handsome because you have Asian features, but you have light skin. Now, I don't necessarily like agree with that sentiment, but it definitely kind of adds to, to their thoughts about it, like how they conceptualize the different groups of people and how they think about it. And yeah, but feel free. We got 4 folks on here. Feel free to chime in with any questions or thoughts that you all have. Yeah, Code. Southeast Asia has Indian influence, and there are Thai Indians. So, like, there's a gem tower near me where they do a lot. Well, there's multiple gem towers near me where they do a lot of jewelry business, and a lot of those businesses are owned and operated by Thai Indians. So the Indians here tend to be very, very well off. They tend to be owners of restaurants and other types of businesses. And Thailand itself is within the Indosphere. So I'll back up here. I think of Cambodia, Thailand, Myanmar as being within the Indosphere, so heavily influenced by India. And Vietnam is in the Sinosphere, so Vietnam is much more influenced by China. But yeah, I've been warmly received. One of my Thai friends, Dong Chanak, she's an artist and she's been to India. So that's how we connected. We met on Tinder and we were talking about India. And she's like, "Oh yeah, I've been to India. It was awesome." And so there's this positive perception, unlike maybe some other parts of the world about Indians. A lot of the names too in Thailand, like, they're coming from Sanskrit. So their names are going to sound very similar to Indian names. And I also live near like a Hindu temple here in Bangkok. There's a Hindu temple not too far from here. Really a beautiful temple. Yeah, and then other parts, so Indonesia, Malaysia, and also the south of Thailand. So I was down here in Hat Yai. Was that? I think I was there in March. I was in Hat Yai in March. Large Muslim population. So when you go to the southern part of Southeast Asia, much more influence from Muslim culture, and the northern part up here is more Hindu. Northwestern part is more Hindu influence, and the northeastern part is more influenced by China. But all of these countries, people have treated me well. I happen to love a lot of Muslim food. That's part of the appeal to Indonesia. I would like to get over there eventually, but it's such a big country. I think it's the most populous country in Southeast Asia. Indonesia is one I want to give more time to, because it's something I just don't. Well, one, I'm not as into the idea of Bali, but two, there's so much to see and do there that what's the word, like, it's something I don't necessarily want to like rush through. Tony asks, any thoughts about going back to Latin America, Alex, especially Cusco? So that's a great question, Tony. I have some interest in going back to Latin America. Unfortunately, at some point, I'll need to go back to the United States for the next job I get. It's dragging out. So the tech industry is currently in recession right now, and I'm getting rejections on my applications. I'm not in a rush to go back, but it's like the longer I stay here, I tack on more time to the end of this trip, the more time I need to spend back home earning money to hit my FIRE number, right? My financial independence number. So, basically how it's going to work out is eventually, probably, I suspect I won't get a job back in America for another 6 or 7 months. I think they'll start to cut interest rates this fall, and we'll start to see tech hiring pick up toward the end of the year. And, that's when, if I start another job, assuming I don't have a relationship here in Southeast Asia, because, I may meet a nice lady over here, and that would probably cut down my exploration. Then my next trip, like assuming I don't meet a lady and I'm back in America working and I've got my week or 2 weeks vacation, I really want to go to Argentina. So Peru was wonderful, but I'm hesitant to travel back to Peru until I see more of Latin America. Because let's see, we'll pull it up here. I really want to check out Argentina. I've been wanting to check out Argentina for a while, but like Argentina, from what I've heard from a lot of people, is just, well, it was the wealthiest country in the world 100 years ago, or one of them. And so it's like super developed. Of course, they've got the insane inflation that everybody's familiar with. They're trying to sort that out right now. It's not a political interest, by the way, with Argentina. I was interested in it before Milei. But yeah, Buenos Aires, it's supposedly like almost like a European city in Latin America as far as like layout. It's supposed to be very organized and developed. A friend of mine's brother actually lived down here to work on a construction or architecture project, and I think they'll turn it around. I think it'll go back to being on the up and up. But yeah, you see this architecture, it looks like Paris. Just absolutely gorgeous. And Sabbatical, probably one of my favorite YouTubers. He lived down here for a couple of years, and yeah, he has a lot of positive things to say about it. I recommend checking out. I'll throw the name of his channel. I recommend checking out his Argentina content because, I mean, look at that. It's gorgeous. And I think they probably have some if it's anything like Peru has some Japanese architecture, clearly from Japanese firms, that really reminded me a lot of Japan. So I love Peru. And so Tony, that's a fair question. Cusco is among my favorite cities in the world. Personally, if I were to suggest like what the best value for money city I've ever lived in would be Cusco. If I was only looking at like what I can get for the how I could maximize my dollars spent, I technically think Cusco is the best. The menu del dias there are mind blowing. I'm talking like I was having small steak lunches for $1.50 equivalent. I think like 6 soles. Uh, vegetarian lasagna for like 12 soles. Like just the local cuisine and the variety of food that they have, the fresh fruit that they had, like mind blowing. I mean, pomegranates for like $1, like just insanely amazing because you're so close to where they produce all this stuff that if you're looking to have kind of a natural lifestyle, I found Cusco to be the best value of any city, maybe even more so than Chiang Mai. Just my personal opinion. Like, we should actually pull up Cusco here really quick. And the historical sites, I'm definitely a history enthusiast, and you'll never run out of historical sites in Cusco and the surrounding areas. I also found the culture, like I've talked about, Tony, having that introverted culture where you're in Latin America and you get the warmth of the people, but the people are also fairly quiet and, just really chill people and respectful. Um, the street dogs could get a little bit out of hand. If I were to go back, I might want to bring something just to carry in case, because you occasionally run into one that's not very nice, and some people unfortunately do get bitten. But that's something I'm willing to overlook because I liked it that much. It's also Cusco also has this underrated international feeling. So it's similar to Chiang Mai, and you get tons of international who are there passing through to go to Machu Picchu, and so even though it's like 500,000 people in the metro, it punches far above its weight in terms of variety and options. Great sushi. It's it's cool and accepting and tolerant. And I remember when I was there during COVID, and the cops would drive around, and every Sunday you were supposed to not go out for whatever reason, but nobody followed that rule. I'm not going to stay inside 24 hours on a day just because of COVID. So I would go out and wander around, and if the cops saw you, they'd be driving around and but they wouldn't get out. They wouldn't stop. Like they wouldn't even stop and say anything to you. So it was just like this finger wagging, like, hey, it's not reasonable to expect you to stay inside, but I've got to do my job type of a thing. It's it's a very peaceful city. It felt very safe. I've heard there are some unsafe areas. I didn't personally encounter those. I've heard those are mostly near the airport. So I did not explore as much around the airport. Here's the airport. I was much more up here, like around, not too far from San Blas. I stayed at this hotel for like several months, Hotel Golden Inca, and great value. They have like coca tea in the lobby. We could just pull up, like you could see the rooms. They take, any of your Western credit cards. Really a nice place. Code asks, have you ever dated a Thai bar girl? Never had any interest. I've never even been in a bar in Thailand, actually. A lady bar. I think I've been to a few restaurants that have bars attached, but and you know what? I went to Zoe and Yellow. I haven't been since I came here 6 years ago, but there's a popular nightclub in Chiang Mai, Zoe and Yellow, but it's more of a nightclub. It's not like a bar scene. I just don't, there's just not a lot. There's just not a lot in the bars that are of interest to me. No judgment on those who enjoy them, but it's just kind of not the happiest environment from my perception. I spent a month in Pattaya, and it wasn't for me. Tony had asked, I noticed you deleted it, but any other YouTubers that come to mind? Sabbatical is one of my favorites. Um, who else can I think of? Um, sabbatical. Indigo Traveler, but you probably have seen his stuff, Tony. He hasn't uploaded in a while, and he tends to do controversial stuff. Some people don't like. He goes to places like Haiti, and part dangerous, a lot of dangerous travel. Let's put it that way. Um, Not for everybody, but I'll look up Pilgard Travels. I haven't heard of Pilgard, but I'm always interested to. Oh, very cool. Yeah, I'll throw a subscription on here because this looks interesting to me. I see he's doing Argentina. So yeah, he earned a new subscriber. Thank you, Tony, by the way. Who else comes to mind as far as travel YouTubers? Travel YouTubers, travel YouTubers. I mean, one that all of you have heard of, Walter's World. He's part of and Gabriel Traveler. These are the two that are kind of the OGs, and they're who got me into some of these destinations. Like I went to Portugal after a recommendation from Walter's World. He's talked a lot about living in Portugal, also living in Argentina. But they're huge channels, both of these guys. Gabriel Traveler's around 600K subs. Walter's World has surpassed 1 million subs. And who else? I think somebody asked before if I'd go to China. I think, will you visit China? So China is of interest to me. Hoshia, it's not as high on the priority list just because of the amount of legwork. There's a lot of effort that goes into getting a visa. I've done business a lot with people in China, like in Shenzhen. They've always been super friendly and would welcome me to show me around town and visit and all that. But it's just a lot of legwork, and it's I also feel like it's one of those places that's like some would disagree, but maybe not changing quite as rapidly as some other places. Like some of the countries that I've really fallen in love with are rapidly developing and such that I feel like if I don't see them soon, I'm going to be missing something. And some people would say, "Oh, don't have FOMO," but like I'm so glad I traveled pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, like some of these places were quite a bit more lively. Chiang Mai being an example of that. I mean, pre-COVID, Chiang Mai was it's still dynamic, it's still fun, but it was like I don't know how to explain it, Wild West kind of feeling, and Phnom Penh especially. I mean, Phnom Penh, like I can't think of a more like frontier type of a town. Like you go to, pre-COVID, I went to Phnom Penh and I felt like I'm on the edge of the earth here. Like just the wild stuff that you see. Like I remember going and seeing like piles of burned up fake money. And I had no idea what it was. I thought somebody like caught a counterfeiter and set fire to all this money. Turns out they burn money as part of like some kind of luck. I remember staying in this like shady hotel, and the owner lighting up cigarettes in the lobby and just talking to me about how much he loved America. The owner is Chinese. He's like, "Oh yeah, I took a car and I drove from Miami to New York City," and it was like it was just totally wild. Like and he's just being uber friendly to me, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like, why is he being so nice to me? And he was genuinely nice. Like, he wasn't trying to upsell me. The room was like $15 a night. I think he was just surprised because I think he just didn't get very many Americans. We'll pull that back up. Phnom Penh. Where was that hotel? I think it might have been the Orusai Hotel. I don't know if it's still there. I don't think this was it. No, that wasn't it. I can't think of it. When I stayed in Phnom Penh, I stayed over here. We'll just pull it up because it's not showing up. New season. Season. This is where I stayed. And it's right on the riverfront. Wow, they've been updating the riverfront. That looks beautiful. But you walk right out into the hustle and bustle of things at this hotel. You've got the riverfront there. People would be out there doing these like group exercise classes. And that was the first time I'd seen something like that. I'm like, why are all these people working out like this? It was really lovely just to see people concerned about their health. And then the Indian restaurant was downstairs, so it was like you could stop downstairs, have a bite to eat, and go out and have a wild night, or you could come back, and if you weren't getting back too late, you could get food and then go and crash out. Part of my Phnom Penh journey, part of what made it so wild, yeah, Steve Ross is actually a subscriber to my channel, Tony. Surprisingly enough, I'm definitely a fan of Steve, and yeah, he's left me a comment. I watched his interview on Irish Times a while back, and I really liked it. Yeah, Steve's an interesting dude. I can appreciate his story a lot. He talks about how he's like, of course I'm selfish. I'm only child of a single mother. And I'm like, wow, I relate to that so much. Like I was only child of a single mother. So I can really relate to Steve Ross a lot. But yeah, so with new season, so I get to this hotel and I get there. I think my flight landed in Phnom Penh at like 11:30 in the morning. And I walk outside the airport, the immediate airport area of the airport, and I get a tuk-tuk and I get a ride there. And we agree on a price. I think it was like $5 or $6 or something like that. And we get to this hotel and he drops me off and I pay him and then go inside. The tuk-tuk driver immediately starts screaming and yelling at me. Oh my God, I think he wanted a bigger tip or something like that. But like, I figured I gave him the payment. Like I gave him the tip. Like you're not shaking me down. So he's shouting and yelling at me. And I don't know if I'm in trouble because I'm half awake. I'm jet lagged and I'm still getting the bearings of where I am coming from the airport. And we could pull up Phnom Penh airport really quick. On the way from the airport, we can show the map this way. So this is the route. So it's about a half-hour ride. All along the way, we're passing chickens in the road. We're passing people riding their bicycles. We're passing like gigantic trucks. I'm just like staring out the window or the like flap of this tuk-tuk, wondering, where am I? What alien planet did I land on? Because in America, everything is super orderly, right? You get in the car goes onto the road, everybody's in their lanes. And on here, there's people pulling off, there's people like just stopping in the middle of the road. And it was just total chaos. And so we get there and, we get here and then the tuk-tuk driver is yelling at me. And the guy, he happens to be from Bangladesh, one of the guys working there, and he opens up the door for me and he welcomes me in. And I'm like, wow, this is nuts. He's like, yeah, the city has problems. And I'm like, oh my God, where did I go? Like, as soon as I get here, the guy is warning me like, yeah, this place, the inside of the hotel is nice, but out there sucks, man. And I'm like, oh my God. But whatever, I'll enjoy it. And so I just, went out. Like I think I didn't even go out. So I went upstairs and I passed out at 1 p.m. and I wake up at like 9 p.m. and I'm like, okay, so I'm super jet lagged. I guess I'm just going to wander around. Well, I had no idea this is a nightlife district, Riverside. And so I'm walking around staring at all these girly bars like, what is this place? Like, why did I come here? And, but not in necessarily a bad way, just like very, very overwhelmed and didn't know what to make of them. That's not my thing. And I wasn't about to, change my mind about that. And eventually I made it back to my hotel. But yeah, it was just so confusing. Like, it was just such a sensory overload. To see all these neon lights and the city's tightly packed and the tuk-tuk drivers, every 5 steps, they're saying, hey, do you want this man? Hey, do you want that man? I can get it all. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm good. No, I'm good. No, I'm good. And just a super overwhelming scene there, but wild town. I mean, one of the wildest towns I've ever been in. Chev and Dev, most boring sanitized travel vloggers. I struggle a little bit with the more sanitized vloggers because Um, it's not a judgment call. I know a lot of people, they're looking for a more stable vacation or standardized trip, but I struggle to get value from some of those more sanitized versions that I can't just through Googling, right? Like to me, if I'm watching a travel vlog, I want to see or experience something that's not going to be easily found on Google. I want to see and experience some things that, uh, are what's the word, are totally different from what I'm accustomed to. Like, what does it smell like, right? If the blog only shows the nice restaurants and the nice hotels, you're not going to smell the barbecue on the street, right? You're not going to smell like, people lighting a fire in a barrel to stay warm, like just, kind of wild stuff that you experience in person. And yeah, so that would be a challenge. Code says you can't do anything without WeChat Pay. That would be a challenge because, if you can't pay with cash, then I think there's some friction there that you have to be aware of. And I noticed what you're talking about, Code, because I've transited through China multiple times through Xiamen. That was part of what made the Phnom Penh trip weird. Is I flew to LA and then I flew to Xiamen, China, and then I flew from Xiamen. We'll just zoom out here. I flew from Xiamen. Where is Xiamen? Why is Xiamen? Or yeah, Xiamen is here. Yeah, so I flew from Xiamen, and there was like 5 people on this airplane from Xiamen to Phnom Penh. I'm like, why are they running this flight with like 6 people? But when I was in the Xiamen airport, I saw like an orange juice machine. I wanted to get orange juice, but didn't have any like Chinese yuan, and I think they had a WeChat thing, and I didn't have WeChat either. I'm like, well, whatever. I guess I'll go without it. But that's something that's something to be aware of, is that without being able to easily pay for things, that's some friction that I don't experience in Southeast Asia. Like Cambodia, I could just pull out US dollars at the ATMs or the US dollars I brought with me and start spending, and it makes it so easy. Everywhere takes dollars. They even prefer them to the reals, and so that's easy. Thailand, of course, Thai currency, the Thai baht is the 10th most circulated currency in the world, so very easy to get Thai baht. Vietnamese dong, very easy to convert. So that would make it challenging. I'm not opposed to going to China, but it's something that's going to take more research and legwork than say places like Vietnam or Thailand. Hoshia mentioned, okay, yeah, burning money for the deceased. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was just so confused by it because, yeah, I just had no idea. I remember too in Phnom Penh seeing like a Rolls Royce and being like, where am I? Speaking of which, there's a fantastic French restaurant. Let me pull it up. I'll look it up really quick. French restaurant, Phnom. Okay, yeah. Chimera. There's quite a few really nice French restaurants in Phnom Penh. Oh, La Poste. Okay, that's it. Yeah, so this spot, Kamai, I guess. Yeah, this restaurant, really nice. I went here for breakfast. Amazing croissants, fantastic omelets, like really, really nice place. The yogurt was really, really nice. I've never been to France, and so it was definitely interesting to experience some of that French influence. But the architecture in Phnom Penh is super cool. Like it's an underrated city for me. R says, love the Cambodia tuk-tuks. Why aren't tuk-tuks on Grab in Thailand? That's a good question, R. I'm going to make a note of that. I want to ask, I'll get back to you about that. Why aren't tuk-tuks on Grab? I have ridden in one with some Thai friends. I've never ridden in a tuk-tuk in Thailand on my own. So I've always heard that they tend to overcharge if they see that you're a foreigner. And that's something I've been concerned about. But my Thai friends, when we were at well, let's see here, we were at the temple, Grand Grand Palace. When we were at the Grand Palace, we hired one outside of the Grand Palace, and my friends that are Thai, they helped negotiate the price. But I think about when I tuk-tuks, I think about flexible pricing, and I was comfortable using them in Phnom Penh because you access them, like you said, through Grab. I used Pass app, and the price you're notified about it up front, which I liked because I was getting bugged everywhere in Phnom Penh by the tuk-tuk drivers about getting rides. And for me, I always prefer using the app when it comes to transportation because I want to know how much it's going to cost before I agree to it because I just have more control that way. Chris Lewis. Yeah, I watch Chris Lewis. Thank you for mentioning Chris Lewis, Tony. I think he does some interesting stuff. What else? You pull up my channel. I can throw, not my channel, but my YouTube page and just check out my recommendations. This one guy has been like blowing up really fast. I don't mind sharing him because he's really blowing up. He's this homeless Japanese guy, assuming he is really homeless, and he's been like his channel has just been popping off. You guys may have gotten his channel suggested to you. Okay, Code. Yeah, Nomad Push. Yeah, he is hilarious, and I like his energy. He's just got an interesting vibe about him. Who else could I mention? Greeny Travels. Yeah. So Greeny Travels, Greeny and I discussed me going on his podcast. He's based near Pattaya, kind of the South Pattaya area, Bang Saray. We haven't really lined something up. He's been traveling a lot lately. He went to Vietnam. He's been in Hong Kong recently. So I may not be able to link up with Greeny before the end of my trip here. I may shoot him another message just because I'm on my way out of here in Thailand in about 7 weeks or so, and I'd go down to Pattaya, to do a podcast with him, just kind of talk about some experiences. He's fully retired, like he owns his condo in Bang Saray. He's got a car down there, like he's committed to Thailand, and I like his Midwestern kind of vibe too. Me being from the Southeast, I definitely can appreciate some of the cultural nuances of a dude from the Midwest. But yeah, Greeny's got some interesting stories. He's already been married and divorced here in Thailand too. He's talked about it in his vlog, so I don't think I'm oversharing there. But he's really just like lived full on here in Thailand. He's a former detective as well. So he's got like I appreciate his sharing about that. Another one, Tony, that you might like, Sly's Life. I think Sly is kind of underrated. He's got like 110K subs. I'm surprised he doesn't have a lot more. He's traveled everywhere. So he retired from the military and he's just been like everywhere. He's been to Africa. I actually ran into Sly in Cusco. So I didn't know Sly back then, but I was filming in Cusco and passed by Sly, and I'm in his Cusco video. So actually, I need to, if I find it, like I need to share it sometime. But yeah, Sly was in Cusco, like when I was in Cusco in 2021, and I'm walking down the street recording myself, and he's walking in the opposite direction recording, and he's like, "Oh, there's a guy recording." It was so funny. Like if you watch Sly's Cusco vlog, you should see me in there. I think it's around the halfway point. But I'd love to meet up with Sly at some point. He's probably one of my favorite vloggers because he's just got like a positive attitude. He seems like a genuinely kind of happy guy. He's in Russia right now, actually. But I think he's to some extent almost running out of places to go because he's been all over Africa, all over Asia, all over South America, and to Europe. So he's been like Western Europe. So he's been to like almost everywhere, it seems like. And I like his channel too, because he's down to earth and he's kind of real. Like he shows you, look, I'm not staying in some 5-star hotel. This is my normal hotel. I'm trying, mid-range restaurants. He's somebody that I can relate more to. And that's what I like a lot about his channel. But Sly's Life, super underrated in my opinion. Who else can we go for here that I'm a fan of? I like Mike's Philippine Retirement. You guys are probably familiar with. I like Vagabond Awake okay. I don't like the kind of like the showing off of the lady as much. And this isn't like a judgment thing, like, oh, I'm too good and this and that. It's just like, I get it. It drives engagement. People like to look at an attractive woman, but to me, it can distract away from like the realities. And the reality is most of us aren't going to date a Malaysian model, right? Like most of us are not going to be in a relationship with a model from Malaysia in an age gap situation. And so like, to me, some vloggers can get, and he also does scripting a lot. So he's done a lot of scripting in his videos, and I'm not as much of a fan of scripted content because it's just too orderly. Like maybe I'm just a chaotic person, but I like to be off the cuff and like not filter what I'm thinking, because I want people beyond what's required, right? Like I can't, I prefer not to use foul language on YouTube. I prefer not to talk about certain subjects that may not be valuable to my audience. But it's too productized in a way for me. The product is too clean when you have a lot of scripting going on. And I wonder how much of it is a character. And I try not to be a character in my content, right? I try to be more like who I really am to whatever extent I could possibly be. And I find that if I were to script my content, it might take away from the authenticity for me personally. Other people probably do well with, scripted content. They can come across as more authentic. I just feel, I don't know. I guess what I'm getting at is I don't feel like I'm acting. It's first and foremost, it's fun for me. The other thing about Vagabond Awake is sometimes he gets into the cheap Olympics a little bit, in my personal opinion. Like he'll disclose how much he's earning and then be like, oh, we're only living on $800 a month here. And it's like, is that really necessary? Like if you're at retirement age, and you make, let's say, 10,000 a month, why live on 800, right? Like, and also, is that really true? Like he's done videos where he'll interview somebody that's living on 500 a month. And it's like, I don't really know if it's a good idea to try to convince people that they can come over to this part of the world and live on such low amounts, especially when that might not be telling the full picture. Like, does that cover their emergencies? Who knows? Maybe they rent, maybe they go over to their friend's apartment and, oh, look at this tiny hovel I'm living in, but really they're living in a big place down the street. I think at those amounts, it starts to get into danger territory. And some would say, well, I'm saving for an emergency, but it's like, if you're that concerned about your health, I don't know, like if living abroad is the best decision, because you're probably going to be able to get better healthcare in your home country. A lot of older people do have different kinds of health insurance schemes that they can get through the government that will help reduce their healthcare costs. And the quality is, arguably easier in terms of lack of language barrier. So that's another thing, is like, I get it. There's an element of it selling the dream, but like when you lower the barrier to entry too low, then I think you may encourage people to make risky decisions. And I know they would say, well, it's up to each individual to do their own research, but it's like, how helpful is it for me to watch a video that's telling me about how you live in your apartment, go for walks, and cook at home for 500 a month, when I want to not cook. I want to live in a more nice condo. Like it, I don't know. It just some people are better off in their home country, and I don't think that's anything to be ashamed about. Most people, I would say many people around the world would love to live in a Western democracy. So, it's more so in my mind, it's great for some, not great for all. Can you talk about how you spend your day, like your daily routine? Yeah, so that varies a lot lately, Code. The last week I've been, I don't know, focused on trying to plan. If I'm parked somewhere for a while, I usually start off every day, wake up, I drink water, try to rehydrate, because running, sleeping under the aircon all night does seem to dry me out like a lot. I'll throw on some clothes and I'll go to the gym. I like to do a workout, whether it be lifting weights or doing some cardio type stuff. That's a big thing for me, just for my mental health and well-being, is working out. I think it's crucial. If I don't have access to a gym, like if I'm in a part of the city that doesn't have a gym, or like during COVID, the gym's closed down, I'll try to do a lot of walking. Like some weeks here in Bangkok, I've walked as much as like 15 miles in a day, over 30 kilometers, which sounds crazy, but like I'll just go out walking. And so I'll leave my apartment. Well, I'll pack up my backpack. I'll make sure I've got all my batteries for my camera, batteries like my power banks for my phone, have my wallet on me, cash, I've got my clothes and all that. And then I'll just go out walking, and I'm like, pick a direction and just go walking. Or I'll pick a certain attraction that may be, I don't know, an hour walk away, hour and a half walk away, and I'll just go in that direction. Or I'll hop on the bus. But to me, like, some people are like, why would you walk? Oh, are you too cheap to use the bus, or too cheap to call a cab? For me, knowing that heart disease runs in my family, I place a high priority on exercise. Like, it's something I don't get to do enough of in the West because I'm so busy with work. And along the way, you see and experience a lot of random weird stuff that you wouldn't experience if you just traveled there by train or by bus or by car or something like that. And then I'll find, oh, wow, a temple. I had no idea this temple was here, but now that it's here, I'm going to stop in here and check it out. And then, I get hungry. I'll stop in a restaurant and have a bite to eat. Oh, this looks good. Or, oh, that smells good. I'll try and have that. And then I just go about it until my legs hurt. And so when my feet hurt, usually they start to hurt around like the 8 to 10 mile point. Then, I'll start to make my way back home, and I'll take a different way. So I walked this way to get home. Well, I'm going to come this way to get back. And that's been super helpful. And that way I get to see a lot of random stuff that I wouldn't see normally. And I get to experience restaurants I wouldn't find normally. And that's not always the case, right? Sometimes there's a specific thing that I want to go see. So like, I'll pull up Pattaya here. Pattaya. So with Pattaya, I found out about Koh Lan. And so, one day that involved just walking down to the pier. I stayed in Jomtien. And so I hopped on a bot bus on Tep Praya Road and came down here, and then just walked down to the Bali High Pier. And then you just hop on a ferry over to Koh Lan, and I just walked around the island. I'm not a motorbike rider. So for me, I have some concerns about safety. I've seen probably half a dozen accidents here in Thailand in this year alone, and I'm just really cautious about it. So then I just go out, walk around the island. I'll check out some beaches, enjoy it that way. But yeah, exercise, being outdoors, living outside is like the focal point of a lot of my travels. Like in America, I feel like I stay inside all the time because of safety, for example. Here in this part of the world, I feel a lot safer. So I want to just go out and explore. I want to see everything. I want to go out and experience things too. So if there's a certain attraction or activity that I want to do, I'll make it a point to include it in there. I try to film a lot too. Sometimes, like, and in that day, I told you I just go out walking. If I find a quiet place to film, I'll try to shoot a video there. Uh, Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. They have a lot of ambient music and ambient noise as far as like motorbikes and vehicles that can make recording a video difficult. But that's how I mostly spend my day. You know, if I've got a date, I try to schedule them more at night, um, and hang out at night, go out at night when the day's cooled off. Typically, the women that I've dated have had jobs during the day, so their free time is at the night, is at nighttime or on the weekends, and we'll meet up and hang out. Uh, Depending on the context, if things are going well, they might come over and spend time at my place. But yeah, that's mostly what I do. And then some days, if I've got editing to do, I'll just hang out at the apartment all day. I'll stay home and I'll just get through editing. I'll pull usually as soon as I get home and I cool off with the aircon. I'll pull all my footage over onto my hard drive and onto my laptop, and then I'll try to edit. And it usually takes me like several hours to edit each video that I put up there. And yeah, and then I'll do my uploads. But yeah, that's roughly my daily routine code. And then if I'm getting ready to go to somewhere new, I spend a lot of time in the evenings researching. So most of what I do outside is during the day. I go out at night some, but I try to maintain like, hey, for my health, it's better for me to sleep a more normal schedule. But yeah, I mostly like to edit in the evenings. I'll like order takeout from Food Panda or Grab, or hit up a restaurant within walking distance of my apartment, and then just edit. And also, I spend a lot of time watching YouTube. Like I spend a lot of time when I'm out walking. I have YouTube going in my pocket. I probably watch YouTube or listen to YouTube like 48 hours a week, if not more, just listening to different content creators, trying to understand their logic or reason, finding new content creators that can give me some different angle. Also participate in some live streams like Philippines Antics. If I wake up early enough, because they start their streams early, they start their streams at like 8:30 a.m. Philippines time or around then. Sometimes I'm a guest on their channel where they open up their live stream to a panel format discussion, and sometimes I'll join in on there in the mornings and participate, and just kind of mostly I listen and ask questions because I don't know as much about the Philippines. I've only spent about a month or a little bit less than a month there. But that's something I've been doing lately is jumping on their streams as a guest. I haven't been on one recently. It's been a few weeks, but yeah, I find value in connecting with other content creators. R says, I use resistance bands. I think that's a great way to do things, R. I think that's efficient, and you're able to get a more varied workout in than pure body weight. You really got a great idea there. That's something I need to get on, actually. In Chiang Mai, I was really consistent about going to lift weights because I have a gym, Gold's Hillside, that was like 15, 20 minutes walking from my apartment. And so I'd go there and do a workout, and then I'd start the rest of my day. But it always put me in a good mood to have a hard workout in the morning, or maybe around midday if I woke up late, and then come back to apartment, shower up, change, and get into editing or get into exploring, going and having a nice meal or something like that. But yeah, great questions, great comments. Thank you so much, everyone, for your input. Feel free, we've got 5 viewers now. Feel free to chime in with any thoughts or questions or ideas. Let's see. I guess we pull up Cusco again. Or, well, Lima. Yeah, just because I talked a bit about Cusco, and I don't know what these signs are, but yeah, Lima was cool. Lima, I definitely want to get back to alongside Cusco because there's so much I didn't see. It's got this mysterious. It's like the only city in the world where you've got like land in the same location. But it may be getting time for a lot of people to start their days. So if anybody wants to throw in any additional questions or thoughts, I'll probably wind down in the next 15, 20 minutes or so. Um, and if if you guys can think of any channels I should watch, feel free to throw those down there too. I'm always looking for interesting content, new channels to look at. We hop back over to Southeast Asia actually, just because pull Da Nang back up. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be really interesting, and it's going to be more like Chiang Mai from my thoughts and just from my observations. Like Da Nang is going to be a lot more like Chiang Mai. I've heard it described as like Chiang Mai with a beach or Chiang Mai on the ocean. But yeah, let's see. Yeah, Hoi An. I've heard I could go down to Vung Tau. I've heard good stuff about Vung Tau. I don't know if you could chime in on that code if you've spent time in Vung Tau, but it's quite close to Ho Chi Minh City, actually. I forgot which one of these cities. Somebody told me, it might have been Matt, told me that one of these cities was kind of rough and I should avoid it. Maybe it was Vung Tau. I can't remember which though. I've heard Nha Trang is really popular among Russian tourists, kind of similar to like Pattaya because it's apparently they like the heat, like the hot weather, more so than some of the milder temps up in Da Nang or in Hanoi. Roaming Hogan. Okay, I'll let's see here. Roaming Hogan. Oh yeah, I think I've watched his videos. Yeah, I might have been unsubbed from him by YouTube. Sometimes that happens, or I'll be following a channel and for whatever reason get unsubbed. Oh, I forgot. JP and Amelia. I'm a fan of JP and Amelia. They're in Europe, but they were in Ecuador for a while. A great channel as far as Latin America topics. Now they're more on the road, just I think, because some of the challenges in Ecuador, but they're great as well. I like that they have this kind of positive and optimistic. Oh yeah, Patty Doyle. I definitely have watched a fair amount of his content on Thailand. He's got such a thorough coverage of a lot of places in Thailand. I think he's been to like every province in Thailand. I think he speaks Thai quite well as well, which is like unheard of among the foreigner population. So yeah, shout out to Patty Doyle. Great content. Um, yeah, well, I appreciate everybody watching tonight. I think I'm going to call it here pretty soon just because, yeah, my voice is starting to go a little bit as you can tell. And I know a lot of folks. Well, I don't know. Trying to think of just any more topics that we want to cover in this stream. I guess we could look at, yeah. One thing I want to look at was how to tackle that, and that'll probably carry us through to a nice stopping point. Um, Ho Chi Minh City. Wow, I heard about this city and read about this city when I was younger because, like, my grandfather, he served in the Vietnam War, and it just seemed like this mysterious faraway land. He was over here for a couple of years. Now, I do think he was more in the north, but I heard a lot of soldiers pass through Ho Chi Minh on their way to, either on the way to Vietnam or on the way out of Vietnam. And it was probably a very different city back then as far as development goes. And I think this is the tallest building in Vietnam, Landmark 81. That's just beautiful. And I think these are Vin homes surrounding it. That's a um, popular company there in Vietnam. Reminds me of like the Empire State Building. What a beautiful pool. And it's such a high level too, where you can get a crazy view of the cityscape. Man, Thailand definitely has a lot of those Blade Runner vibes. But who knows, maybe in the future, Vietnam will be giving it a run for its money. I still am thrown off by all the gigantic billboards in Bangkok. And you see these huge faces, and it's a sight to behold. What else here in Ho Chi Minh City? Supermarket, interesting. Oh, Ben Han Mall. So this looks like a popular mall. It's got a similar layout to the mall that's attached to Bangkok Immigration. It's got this kind of futuristic design, open air at the lower level. Fairly utilitarian in design. Not so many artistic frills as some of the Bangkok malls. Although this is nice. I like these flowers. What else? I really haven't researched Ho Chi Minh City a lot. Oh, the most obvious one that everybody's watched is Best Ever Food Review Show. He's probably my favorite. Of course, he's massive. So much so he was on like the Joe Rogan Experience. But he lives in Ho Chi Minh City. That's where he's based out of, and I think that speaks a lot to the quality of the city. If somebody like him who can afford to live anywhere in the world chooses to live in Ho Chi Minh City, then that really, that's some brownie points for this city, and it makes me want to spend more than just like a day or two there. Maybe I will commit to a longer duration. Of course, I have heard you have to be cautious about pickpockets and some issues with stealing in Ho Chi Minh City. So that's something that would have me on my back foot a little bit. Of course, that's not everybody. Just a few people can really add to that negative, experience there. So this must be a Korean supermarket. Latte is like a popular Korean brand. And it looks fairly walkable. I mean, like, it may be just this is an upmarket district, but like the sidewalks look pretty nice there. Mm, what else? Okay, this looks cool. Sala Urban Park. I like these. I don't know if there'd be shade structures, and I'm a fan of the fish. So, man, this is really impressive. Like, I didn't know Saigon was like this. I mean, this looks gorgeous. Really well manicured. Give Ho Chi Minh City a shot. Mm. Oh, this looks beautiful. A Buddhist temple. It's very, very beautiful and ornate. Yeah, I had a friend from her family was from South Vietnam, and she told me her mom is Buddhist AF, as to put it in her words. And this really speaks to what she was saying about it. Very, very ornate. You can tell like a lot of work went into these. Oh, and I don't know why I didn't mention it, but I like Chani. I like Chani a lot. He's just got kind of this like fun personality, and he, it was the first time I realized like there's a space for Asian YouTubers to really succeed. Like just his upbeat attitude, his sense of humor, not being too proud to joke around about cultural idiosyncrasies. I think overall he's a force for good. And um, yeah, I mean, I did have a kind of a negative experience with a YouTuber. He wasn't a travel YouTuber called, he gamed the algorithms too. Jarvis Johnson. He's from Atlanta area, and I thought I might, I'd watched his channel, ran into him in San Francisco, and I was like, oh wow, I've seen you on YouTube. And he was immediately like, so what? And like just kept walking, like this dismissive, like, dude, come on, you have 1.5 million subs. Like you've got to expect people are going to run into you on the street. Maybe he was having a bad day. I don't know what it was, but it was just like almost like this "who are you" attitude. And so I don't watch his content at all. Of course, he doesn't do travel stuff, so not really relevant to this channel. But that was the only negative experience I've had with a YouTuber. And Ron asks, when are you back in the USA? So Ron, that's a great question. Maybe next spring. That's kind of roughly what it's looking like. I'm hoping by next spring that the tech industry hiring will pick back up, and I'm able to get a good job back in tech to keep grinding it out toward my toward my goals. Code asked earlier, what did I hate about the SDR job? The thing I didn't like about sales work is that you can do everything right and still fail. That's just a broader commentary on sales, where it's really all about timing, territory, and talent. And so, if your talent is there, but your territory is maybe a less strong territory, or the timing is not right, your buyers aren't ready, then that can make your job very difficult. But no, I mean, I learned a lot of valuable skills, and like, even though it was stressful, like, I definitely developed my social skills a lot working in that sales role, talking to people all the time, having conversations with people all the time. But yeah, Ron, I mean, I'm not in a rush to go back to America. I'm like financially, I'm doing fine. And so I'm not, not in a rush. And so I want to hold out for a good job there. I could probably get a job right now if I wanted one, but the compensation, like some of the compensation I've seen has been kind of embarrassingly low compared to what it was a few years ago. And of course, it's the peak of the market was a few years ago, but, that was the guy, he with 1.1 million, 1.5 million subs. Not a fan of him. I'll throw his name in there. This isn't me calling him out or anything. It may have been a bad day, but I was just shocked by his bad attitude. I get somebody's having a bad day, but to be, ugly to somebody that says they enjoy your content, and you run into them in the second most densely populated city in America, San Francisco, like, how to explain it? We ain't in LA, and your celebrity ain't that big. Like, I get it if it's like Leonardo DiCaprio, or I get it if it's like, some other famous actor or actress, but a YouTuber who's like a programming nerd, like, come on, dude, we're all nerds. Like, this is Bay Area. We're all nerds. But yeah, Chani's awesome. Best Ever Food Review Show. These are two really big channels. Awesome. JP and Amelia, awesome as well. Uh, yeah. Well, that's that's maybe he just found it too stressful. Maybe he wanted his privacy, right? Like maybe just people recognizing him. Uh, he didn't like that, right? But yeah, no rush to go back to United States, but I'm hoping by next spring I'll find something good. Technically, I could keep traveling, right? But I I want to get to that point where I can leave the United States and never come back. And so I could, keep going and try to do it through content creation, but it seems fairly risky to me. And also, I uh, I don't want to be in the position where, as in YouTube, I'm an independent contractor, right? So I'm not an employee of YouTube, and it seems fairly risky to totally rely on it. I know some people are very successful with it that really, uh, you know, are amazing, but I don't know if what I add or talk about is so valuable that I could get to that point where I'm able to make a full-time income. For me, a full-time income isn't extravagant. If I could make 1,000 to 1,500 a month or something like that, that would be great. But for me in the software industry, it's just a very straightforward path to making money that is harder for me to turn down, knowing what the earning potential is in sales. Because in tech, the margins are so high. If you're good at selling, you can really earn very well and invest a lot of that money. And then I'd rather be in a position to do this for fun than like, hey, I really need the money. So that's just kind of where I'm at with it. Like, I like YouTube a lot. I don't want to get to the point where I don't like YouTube, but I need to do it because financial reasons, if that makes any sense. And when will you go to the Philippines? So that's a great question, Ron. Philippines. I'm looking at anywhere from August to October. So next, I want to go to Vietnam. I'm actually trying to sort out my visa right now, figuring out the complex visa process for going to Vietnam. And then after Vietnam, I can decide if I want 1 month in Vietnam or 3 months in Vietnam. So that's where I'm at right now. But after that time is when I'm looking at going to the Philippines, and I'm just also trying to line up interviews because I've got a few people that have reached out to me that want to interview me, and then I've got a few people I need to reach out to that I'd like to do interviews with. So that's what I'm trying to sort out, is nailing down how long do I want to spend in Vietnam, and then from there. But yeah, I'll be going to Vietnam mid-July at the latest. Maybe I'll go before then, but that's technically when my Thailand visa expires, and there's still quite a bit more of Bangkok that I'd like to shoot, like to film before I leave, because getting the recordings at the street level and of some of the artwork and some of the signage will help me to build more Thailand content after I leave, because there's a bunch of stuff that when I'm in the moment, living in the moment, it's hard for me to really cover it. But after I have some time to think about and reflect on my experiences, then that content, I can go and revisit that stuff that I'm storing on my hard drives and make it. But yeah, it really comes down to how long I spend in Vietnam. And then after Vietnam is when I'm looking at the Philippines. I don't have my flights booked yet, but I've got a rough idea of where I want to go. I'm going to start off in Dumaguete because that's really a hot spot for a lot of the people that want to interview me and people that I want to interview. And then I'm going to go, let's see, I'm going to go down to Malai. Really want to see Malai. I wanted to go see it last time, but my buddy works there. He's been pressuring me every time we talk. Hey man, you got to come visit. Hey man, come check it out. Ilo is on my radar and I want to see it, but I don't know anybody there. And so, for me, a country like the Philippines, it really helps to have like a friend on the ground that can help you negotiate and show you around and tell you about things, because it's not as well traveled as Thailand, right? Thailand, there's so much you can learn about just watching videos and reading about online, but people are still discovering the Philippines, and they've still got a long ways to go in terms of tourism development. Now, I think there are some great channels contributing to that, some of whom I'll be talking to, but I don't know, like it's people being able to speak English is a blessing and a curse in the sense that it's helpful, but it also can be overwhelming because I'm an introvert and I expect to kind of move around and people just see me as a ghost, which is true in Thailand to some extent. But over there, that's not the case. People are engaging you in the Philippines. People are coming up to you and talking to you. People are like giving you hugs. Like I have people just giving me hugs in the Philippines, people I didn't know. And so, yeah, I didn't experience the shyness um, maybe as much as some other people do in the Philippines. Ron says, I want to go to Singapore, Macau, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Those all sound wonderful, Ron. I think you're going to have a blast in all those places. I've been to Singapore, haven't been to the rest. I had a layover in Taiwan, but that doesn't really count. But Singapore is awesome. I think you'll have a great time. I may have a layover at some point in Hong Kong. Some of the flights I've priced out from Vietnam to the Philippines have me having a layover in Hong Kong. One of my coworkers also lived there for a month last year, and she loved it. So certainly very developed. I had a subscriber living there, but he and I had kind of some differences of opinion. But that's not commentary on Hong Kong, and I think all those places are very developed, and you'll enjoy it, Ron. I'd love to hear about it too. If you make it over there and have these experiences, feel free to let me know which places you preferred and what really stuck out to you about them. And a couple of my subscribers have been to Taiwan recently, like Jake. He went to Taiwan before he came here to Thailand, and he loved Taiwan. He had a great time in Taipei. And another subscriber did as well. He went to Taiwan before he came to Thailand. And Gabriel Traveler went to Macau, I think last year, and he had a good time in Macau. BGC rent is too expensive for a Southeast Asian country. Yeah, BGC seems to be, quite pricey, premier destination. Funny story, I probably could have gotten a job in BGC. So I was working for a company called Service Source about 3 years ago, and they had an office in BGC, and I actually knew of a woman, a friend of a friend, who moved there. So she actually was working for Service Source in Nashville, and they wanted somebody to come from the States to go over and manage their Philippines office. And so she ended up going and subletting her apartment in Nashville, and she was just going to go for like a year. And she's been over there for like 5 or 6 years now, maybe longer, living in BGC. And I almost thought about doing that because I'm like, hey, look, I'll get paid like a Western wage, but get to live in BGC. It's like, best of both worlds. But I thought about it. And it's like, do I want to be working full time in the Philippines such that I'm not able to travel as much as I'd like? Of course, you do have that career stability. Of course, there is that managerial element. Plus, it wasn't guaranteed either. Like, I didn't know how the economy was going to change. It's like, okay, I could work toward that for a year or two and then find out, hey, we're deprioritizing that. That company ended up getting acquired by a company called Accenture, or not Accenture, but Concentrix. And so I don't know what happened to her role, but yeah, I mean, it seems like, an opportunity. What do you think about computer science? Is that a good career? I think it can be. I stopped studying because I was able to get a job. So I pivoted from that job at Service Source into another role, a more sales heavy role. And my earnings increased a lot. So I was making a lot more money. And that was the other side of it. It's like, do I want to go live in the Philippines and make X amount, or do I want to stay here in the States and make 3X that and be able to save a lot more? And so that was what I opted to do. It could have been the wrong decision. Yeah, you could create a cryptocurrency. Like, I think there's some value in that, but I think also, it's inherently, there's risk and all of that. And you also have to, now crypto I think it's going to be a lot more regulated going forward. And so I think whatever you do it for the long term. Like, pick something that you feel confident you could do for 10, 20, 30 years, like the rest of your career, and something you'll enjoy. I went with sales just because I have a sales background and it was more straightforward to me than programming. Plus, with my exposure to technology, then it was easier for me to kind of combine those things. And I figured too, if I make the big bucks in sales and save and invest a lot, I'll build my own passive income through investments. At which point I can go and travel overseas. And my brother-in-law works for UC Davis Medical as IT. That sounds like a great option. I know that one of my subscribers, he retired from the University of California system as a professor, and he's living in Thailand. And he has a great lifestyle in Thailand. He's got a great pension. He's been here for 5 or 6 years. I think that's a very straightforward way to get your pension and basically not have to worry about the money side of living overseas, right? You're going to get X amount every month. You're not having to manage the investments. You've earned it through putting in your time as a professor or a teacher. And I think that's a great option for a lot of people to pursue that. My ideal would be to work in sales and make the big bucks for like maybe 3 or 4 years, and then move here to Southeast Asia in my mid to late 30s. Because, just with the history of heart illness in my family, I don't know if I'd make it to pension age, right? Like now I've been working on my blood pressure, but I already suffer from high blood pressure to some extent at my age at 31. So there is a risk in pursuing a high-paid, stressful job like sales. But on the other hand, it's like when I'm done, I might actually be done for the long term if I earn enough money and invest it wisely. A lot of retired military got Asia, South Africa, America, Africa. It's so big deal, Ron. I'm so very fortunate to have discovered this lifestyle that I love, and I feel that it's not about quantity, it's about quality. And I find that my life is just so wonderful in this part of the world that if something were to happen to me tomorrow, I could honestly say I came to an end doing what I love and full of joy and happiness, and no regrets, right? Like just being able to see these beautiful places and meet these friendly people and have all this delicious cuisine and live this kind of frontier or new world or old world lifestyle is I feel very, very fortunate. Very, very fortunate, man. I got hypertension. I'm sorry to hear that, Ron. It's unfortunate. I hate to hear that. I found the most success on going to a low carb diet. I haven't done that. Water is definitely a big part of moderating blood pressure. I found lowering my consumption of refined sugar, lowering my consumption of things like bread, cutting out soda, cutting out like sweetened drinks like coffee or tea. Sodium is a part of that too. It can be a part of that too. But I did the keto thing for a while, keto diet, and that was really good as far as making me feel healthier. I'd like to get back to that, but it's certainly not easy in this part of the world, right? It's in America, you can do things like I would go to Chipotle a lot and just get the bowl like without the wrap and no rice, no beans. No, I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Ron. It's a good call out, and I'm all about health, and that's something that it would be valuable for me to talk about more on my channel is like healthy expat topics, like not just the psychology of why being over here is good for our mental health or for my mental health, but also some of the lifestyle changes I can make. Whereas back in the US, I'm kind of chained to a desk, acknowledging that I'm able to walk a lot more, acknowledging that I'm able to work out a lot more, that I'm able to make more conscious food decisions, that I'm not always going for the convenient, but that I'm able to go for the healthy. And that's especially true in Vietnam. Like from what I'm hearing, Vietnamese food, there's a lot of healthy options. They have a lot of vegetables that they include, and you can really, Vietnam is one of the healthiest or skinniest countries. I think it might be the skinniest country in the world. And I think that speaks a lot to the health and benefits of the way that they eat. But yeah, a lot of retired military in Asia and South America and Africa. That's interesting. I think a lot of these military guys they see behind the curtain, right? If you think about life in the U.S. as kind of this Wizard of Oz scenario where there's a hidden reality, and then when you're in the military and you go travel with the military, you're like, oh wow, I was told these people suck and this place sucks and the people are nice and this place is awesome, and you open up your mind to all these different lifestyles. And my grandfather loved traveling in Asia. From what I gather, I didn't get to talk about it because he passed when I was young, but he loved traveling in Asia. He lived in Korea working for the military, lived in Vietnam working for the military, and lived in Japan working for the military. And he admired the cultures. And so Ron, I've been to Morocco. That's as far into Africa that I've been. I went to Morocco last winter. So last winter, I visited Europe for the first time, and made it down to Tangiers, and that was cool. I mean, it wasn't necessarily my cup of tea, but Dubai sounds awesome. Like super developed, super built up, a lot of man-made attractions, a lot of. I heard Kenya and South Africa and Ghana is okay. Ghana is popular among a lot of the passport bros, from what I'm hearing. A fair amount of African Americans trace some of their heritage back to Ghana. Nigeria as well. My buddy, he did his genetic testing and found out he's part Nigerian. Kenya, Walter's World has done some great Kenya content. I have heard great things about Tanzania as well. South Africa, I've heard mixed things on. I've heard there's some safety issues. A buddy of mine, we went to high school together. The guy who's actually Nigerian descent originally is African American, but if he goes back Nigerian, he went to South Africa last spring and he loved it. He went with his girlfriend. His girlfriend's actually Vietnamese, and they had a great time. He said he enjoyed it. It was beautiful. He went to Cape Town, and long flight, like 10 hours to London, 10 hours to Cape Town, but had a great time. Egypt, nice. Yeah, I don't know. The challenge with Egypt was probably somewhere the challenge with Morocco, in that you've got, let me look it up just so I think of the right way to put it. But so you've got it like a baksheesh culture where you have to pay extra. And I got pressured when I was in Morocco. I just took a picture of the outside of this restaurant, and this guy comes out and grabs my arm and is trying to tell me it's unacceptable to take a picture. And I just start screaming, police, police, police. And he eventually let go. But, that kind of gave me a bad impression of Morocco. And I know that's just one city and just one guy, but I don't know. I know Best Ever Food Review Show Sunny as well. He had some trouble in Egypt, but never been to Korea. So Korea is one that I may stop over on. So there's a few places that when I go back to America, eventually, I want to break up the trip because it's a long journey, right, from Southeast Asia. It's actually 12-hour time zone difference than where I'm from. So my ideal would be either going through Europe, stopping in either Georgia, the country Georgia, or stopping in Italy. I haven't been to Italy yet. And then doing the rest of the journey, or going the Korea route and flying from like Manila to Seoul, staying in Seoul for like a week, and then flying from Seoul to LA or San Francisco. But Korea is definitely on there. Haven't been yet, but definitely high on my priority list. And I know also they're struggling with like this birth rate collapse. And, I want to see Korea before it changes too much more, if I'm being just totally honest. Yeah, Japan's awesome. I love Japan. Would love to go back to Japan at some point. Super clean, super safe, easy to get around, super walkable, very clean. Yeah, I'd love to go back to Japan at some point, but I will say we're coming up on the 3 hour point and my voice is starting to go. So I'll answer your last question, Ron. And then I think I'm going to wrap the stream up. I really appreciate everybody staying with us tonight or this morning. And yeah, I can't thank and appreciate all of you enough for supporting the channel. What do I think about Australia and New Zealand? Both seem amazing. They're just expensive, right? Like for me, I'm still at a stage where I'm budget conscious. And while I want to go to both, I also know both are two of the most expensive countries in the world due to high wages, import costs. Um, yeah, there's just, there's kind of a barrier there as far as, cost goes and being remote. I would like to go at some point. I'm not opposed to going to Australia or New Zealand, but they may be something where if I do like a week vacation, if I'm working full time and I've got the income for it. One of my coworkers went to New Zealand last year and he had a great time. He went with his girlfriend for a couple of weeks and they loved it. But yeah, thanks so much, everybody. I really appreciate all of you. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll probably be streaming this weekend as well. But until next time, we'll see you later.